Welcome to Film Club, and this is not any film club. This is a special one for multiple reasons. One, it's episode 10. It's our first black and white movie, and it's our first movie from the 50s. So let's get with it. I'm excited because this is nostalgia for me a little bit. This one, but chat is already there. I see. Bend over. Well done. He came back to green. He redid his membership. Couldn't take it. That's great. Thank you very much, Bend Over, for becoming a member. But as always, I'm here with Sandy Q and Jay from Nerd Takes. How are you two?
I'm good. I'm good.
Excited I love a history film. You know that.
Did you geek out because you read the book? I didn't realize this was a book of the novel from the film. I thought it would have been a generic geography, bio kind of pick kind of book or whatever. What are you going to call it?
It is. It's a biography written by Desmond Young, who was a brigadier general in the British Army and was taken captive by Rommel, and grew to learn a lot about him to the point where he wrote his biography. So yeah, it's called the same name, Rommel the Desert Fox. Excellent book.
Cool. Jay, this is your first time watching, and is this like when I say one of your first 50 movies? I mean, this is your first 50s on this at least. So
generally speaking, got to be one of my first 50s in terms of actually watching, beginning to end. I'm sure, throughout time I've seen bits and pieces of ones on TV, some of the classic TV stations, things like that. But no, beginning to end, this is definitely one of my first black and whites, my first ones from the 50s. It was interesting. I have a lot of appreciation for how they made film, given the kind of restrictions of technology and things like that back then.
Now I like. Now this is my pick, guys. So this is my pick. There are reasons. There are reasons for my pick, and there's some fun facts I found out on this watch. I found out about the movie. Now, the reason I picked this, and I do like this movie, is it's very much though. I probably like it more in my head as because it gives me cuddles, and I mean it gives me nuance of like thinking, because I used to sit down with this on a Sunday with my granddad. This is literally the Desert Fox, the Desert Rats, Desert Patrol, anything black, like those kind of old British kind of style war movies was me and my granddad before he passed away when I was 15. So I kind of have this as like a bit of a remembrance thing of like that it takes you back for me as well. Like I enjoy these kind of movies. It's quite funny because this is of course a American production, but very British made. Let's say that with 20th Century Fox as the production company, but it is one of those like late 40s to even to the 60s, a British war movie. So that's it. But there was some fun facts I found out whilst I watched it. This is one of the first movies, and we're getting to it, that use real life clips, I suppose, to fill in, to do the live action bits.
Okay, see, I figured that was the case, and I didn't realize it was the first one to do it. But
one of the first.
Since I saw some things, I'm like, oh no kidding. I'm like, that has to be actual footage, because
there's
no way they had the budget and the means of doing all that,
blowing things up.
I'm like, so I'm like, wow, that's actually pretty interesting. It made it made for an interesting blend of, and not to go too much into it now, but blend of kind of like a documentary feel with the film side of things. That's interesting to know it was the
Yeah,
first.
but yeah, and also was it Kirk Douglas was up for the lead first, but there was some
Oh, great.
rights issues with that, how he's going to do it. So then James Mason, who we'll talk about as the lead of Rommel, came in after he moved to the US. His career went down the pan and managed to get the role. It was also one that was kind of got boycotted by the US,
Yes.
like cinema wise, and we'll talk about that later. And it was well received by the British. And there was another one that was a fun fact, and we'd do it on the opening. So, as it's my pick, I will take us through the kind of the opening scene of, and then I explain why this is quite interesting. So, the opening scene is, of course, a commando raid. You don't know what the commando raid is at first. Of course, it starts off. I'm guessing it's supposed to be Royal Marine Commandos. So they're off, get onto the beach, and in like kind of like a chateau. They're kind of go into. They've all got their balaclavas on, and they go in. Take out the couple of the guards, and then they raid in the things, and then it all goes a bit wrong. There's more German, I suppose, soldiers there, and they kind of backtrack. Like the British soldiers have the backtrack commandos, and a few of them get killed, and they all go. It goes a bit Pete Tong. That's it. It's very simple building up scene, a little bit of action to start with to show you what's going to happen, and then it goes into one of them just being shot. His friend is trying to get him away, and he leave me here. And he gets kicked over by another German officer. And he's like, did we get him? Did we get him? Like that. And he's like, ha, silly English, and laughs it off. Now,
Are you serious? He says, silly Englishmen. Are you serious?
Yeah.
Like, do you know who you're dealing with?
And then it goes straight in to the, I suppose, opening credits. Boom. This is apparently one of the first movies. Apparently, it can't be verified that did the first action scene where this happened. This was the first one before the opening. Like you had normally opening credits, and then it went in. This was allowed to do it because the 20th Century Fox was so like, this isn't going well. We might need to pull it because of the. We'll go on to the protests and later, but. Yeah, this is one of the first movies. Like it's now you get it all the time. You even get like action scenes where the I suppose the title and the actors are on screen at the same time. But yeah, this is the first movie.
You know what I would have thought were the first films to do that? James Bond film, right? Because you go into it and then you get the eyeball and the gunshot and everything like that.
Yeah,
so.
But this one apparently is noted as the first one. It's actually got somebody who's very, very geeky in chat might know it actually has a phrase, what it's called. It's like saying blue something, like it's like actually a terminology that you have the credits afterwards, like like the James Bond one. So
what's it called, Abe?
Yeah, Abe will know, but yeah, then of course, whilst the credits are kind of rolling, that old very style credits, you got like the Desert Fox, the Rommel story, and then you get like we are in North Africa, and you get now the beginning of the story. Now, anybody who's not watched this isn't your normal war story. I have to put that out there. This is a bio. If you had to go that, this is very much a biography of Rommel. But this is 1951. So you can understand why a lot of people perceived it different ways, because this is very soon after, like them even to go, look, we're gonna do this. So, and it was into the fact, and what I read up on it is like, I'm gonna go into more fact, is they did it because of the Korean War, and they wanted to show as well, like, have that disillusion, like they're not our enemies, they're like that is very, like, I suppose at the time like there's Germans and they were Nazis. And then everybody had the thing about, oh, it's all one bubble, I suppose, like that. So this portrayed it in a way that there was two differences, and Rommel was the German officer. He wasn't part of the other establishment. Let's say that for YouTube. Me saying it to you many times might piss them off, but this is a one thing where it was very perceived well. I say in Britain, but the rest not. And I was very surprised that the Americans really took dislike to it. Let's say that. So
did.
yeah.
I was going to say, to the point where I have, I usually do my notes page and my numbers page. I have no numbers page because there is no information available on the budget or the box office that I could find on this film.
Yeah, it did well later, I suppose, like rentals. Let's call that. But yeah, it was just like a 20th Century Fox one that was very it was a British. Yeah, they did well in British cinemas. Critics loved it. But yeah, across anywhere else, it didn't go well. Let's say that. But it was more not because of the movie; it was because of the subject matter, I suppose, like that.
Right,
Because
right.
it's too close to home, I suppose, for a lot of people. It was revering a German officer.
Right. Almost a
as
sense of like glorification type of thing.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, it was kind of normalizing the Germans in a way that hadn't been seen before.
Mhm.
And also, yeah, it was a story of somebody who kind of was revered by the Germans and kind of disdained by everybody else, but kind of respected. And I suppose a lot of people didn't like that. They're the baddies. At the end of the day, it's 1951. You're still the baddies. You're still hating. We're all,
Mhm.
especially Europe, I'm guessing, of course, I'm not at that age, is, but I only can note from my grandparents, is we're all reaving from the devastation. We all got ration books. We all got, like that. In Europe is even worse. It's like, everybody's struggling. So it was quite funny. Like, I like the scene straight away in the movie. It's straight after the credits is you've got, I'm not sure if that was supposed to be Montgomery with the
No.
beret, but yeah, I didn't think it was. But there's a officer there who got the Montgomery beret in the desert like that, and he's got a very similar mustache. Who's giving a little speech about to tell I suppose the men that he is not a god. Rommel is
Yeah,
not a
he's no
legend.
myth.
Yeah, he's not a myth. He's just a man. We need to stamp it up, and that was a very much a thing. Who anybody knows their little bit of history of North Africa. He literally just used to pop up. Literally, when it was literally, he was great at moving, how to move his artillery, his tanks into a location, and then just pop up where they shouldn't do in the mid of night. He was very good at getting getting his forces to where they're supposed to be in a very, very quick time. So yeah, that was a very much thing. And anybody who likes this movie or has just watched it for the first time, I would recommend going and see The Desert Fox. That is the 1953 one with Rats with Richard Burton, who shows it from the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very good counter thing. This one is the better movie than that one, but it kind of counts it. It's like, if you had to do it, I would always say do a double bill. But anyway, I'm going to now shut up ranting about. So we've got, I say, the speech of, I suppose, Montgomery,
the name
Montgomery
of the general,
lookalike, the Montgomery lookalike. Yeah.
Is C.J. Auchinleck. And
is that the one reading it, or the one who was the
He's the one reading it, and the letter went out to all of the field detachments. And so the person reading it was just a division commander, but it was the division commander at the location where General Desmond Young, who wrote the book, was stationed. So it doesn't name him, but he's just a division commander who's reading it.
This is perceived as, I'm guessing, Desmond Young, isn't it, in the movie?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is literally, the next scene is we have some POWs getting, I suppose, march down a desert street.
And so there's a point where they're marching down and they're getting fired upon, and you quickly notice Desmond jump into a foxhole to try to escape or avoid. That really happened. As he was captured, he was at the end, kind of at the back of the line, not realizing that he was the ranking officer. So you see a few minutes later, when the Germans are asking who's the ranking officer here, he didn't realize that he was, and he should have been up near the front. So they moved him up to the front, and the Germans were saying, "Hey, go tell it's the Allied forces that are bombing this location. Go tell them to stop because they're gonna, hurt, harm your own prisoners. They're harming you. Go tell them to stop. We'll give you a white flag and a car." And Desmond Young says, "I can't do that. That is definitely against the rules. I cannot go ask my comrades to stop firing on you." And the German officer gets kind of perturbed, and he goes back to a car to, we suppose, another, an officer that outranks him, and he is sternly told, and in the book, he comes back quite disheartened and angry that he was told that he should not have asked and that he should apologize to the Brigadier Young, and he did. And the person that made him apologize was Rommel. And there, they Young turns around, sees who gets out of the car, sees a baton come out first, that commander's baton that Rommel was known for, turns to Young in the book, and Young writes quite extensively on this, looks at him as human to human, man to man. At that point, we weren't combatants. We respected each other in our positions. Rommel nodded at me, and I felt compelled to salute. Rommel returned my salute. I never saw him again. But that moment, that is the absolute moment that ended up driving Desmond Young to thoroughly research Rommel and then write this book, and then, which became a film. But it was that particular moment, and it was illustrated exactly as it was in the book in the film.
Yeah, kudos to them for that. That is literally spot on, exactly how it happened.
Yeah, I like this one because I think it's, if you ever watch war movies or biographs, like kind of at the time or whatever, this is set up different because then it gets a kind of like a voiceover. It's very like you start getting the voiceover of the author, like I'm guessing it's different an actor doing it. Then you find like they skip ahead.
They skip a lot.
They skip ahead of like they go like so many years. I can't remember how many years what it was. And he was found dead, like that. And they kind of like I suppose like give the conspiracy theory straight away that he didn't die of his wounds. There was I needed to find out more. I needed to do that.
Yeah, there's a
So
mystery
then it's
here.
it's a mystery of that. So it is very. I suppose it's going into like a the Rosebud of Citizen Kane. It's like why, what happened? What happened at the end. So he goes on to like the author goes into speaking. They do like little I suppose little snippets of people. They have the wife, the son. Then they like are people who kind of worked for him, knew him, were in the same town, enemies, combatants, like ally force people, and they kind of going out of they just kind of all he's showing that he's doing his research. Now, this is why I was more interested when Sandy read the book and she said it was spot on. Is this what he did?
Yeah, he did. He immediately, the war ended and this general was posted as the a public relations officer somewhere, but immediately he wanted to know more about Rommel. There was so much respect for him, and even in getting the letter, the letter that said, "I wish you to dispel by all possible means the idea that Rommel represents something more than an ordinary German general." That was part of that letter that commander had read. And I think Young and others were slightly offended by that, because they could respect his military tactics, his genius, how he treated his men. He was renowned for being a very just and kind leader, that supported his men. It's not unlike today in the United States, the difficult conversations around Confederate generals who are studied for their military tactics, but we can't endorse their their cause, but we can't ignore their skill. And that's what Rommel represented, here for World War II. You can't deny that he was successful, that he treated people well, and that he was respected. The criticism and the challenge with this film is that it was viewed as overly sympathetic, and I'm sure you'll get into more of that later. I don't want to jump into that right now. But it was seen as a little overly sympathetic and possibly over fictionalized. But we'll talk about that for those who read the book versus those who didn't read the book.
But yeah, so after that we get straight into what's the 6 miles of artillery? I always forget the battle of. But then they open up, and then we find out Rommel's got some health problems, and he's been away when it started, but then he instantly comes back, and I can't remember what he's got. He's like he comes out of the aircraft.
Diphtheria. They said
is it diphtheria?
Diphtheria.
Yeah, is it diphtheria?
In the book, it might not be diphtheria. It just might be a persistent, like some kind of really persistent infection, like sinus infection or something. But it impacts his it impacts his hearing and his vision and everything, like in his head. So it's pretty debilitating. He didn't want to take himself off the battlefield. He was taken off the battlefield when he was that sick.
I do like this scene because it sets up the two. You understand, it's Montgomery Rommel. This is North Africa. They are playing each other. Who is going to come out on top? And I like it like because he's not been there, they can't get fuel. He's like, I just got to make a phone call. He's really pissed off. They don't have the resources he left them with. It's like now they don't have the pull, I guess, in the call to Berlin that the rest would have. And he's literally, I like how they show this, like he gets straight to it. He gets the map, boom, let's get it in to see, like, where is everyone? We need to do that, and he's like that. He's blatantly still, he's got the tissue in his hand. He's still a bit ill, but he's still like, this is what we do. And I think this is, they over heroize. I don't know what you're going to call it. Like Rommel a little bit here is like, he's bang, he's there like that. And it's for the film. It's trying to show his commanding presence of the other German officers around him, that he's well respected. When they get up, they all smile. Thank God you're here. We don't have to listen to Berlin anymore. And that happens more and more into the movie. And I didn't. This is a movie I loved more because there's a scene in this little sequence when he drives off in the truck. And it reminds me of, and I'm going to say it, it's just like, it reminds me of, what's it? Last Crusade. Is it? No, is it the Last Crusade? Oh, is it Last Crusade? Yeah, it's the Last Crusade. When they go into Africa, they go into Africa, and then what's his name? Oh, when he goes, oh, what was? Oh, God, I forgot the guy's name. The one who owned ran the museum, who died of AIDS in real life. What's his name in the? Oh, come on, people! I have to
like me. I know my brain is stuck.
And they're like,
stuck.
And they're like, he'll get around. Like, there's more pages to the book, and they're like, oh, what's name's gone? He knows ain't like so many languages, and he's like goes into go. Does anybody speak ancient Greek, hello, anyone, you know, all that and such, and like that. But there's the and it only reminds me because when he gets taken off in a truck and it gets dropped, when he lifts it, what is his name? That's going to bug
killing me. I know.
You can Google. Go Google.
This guy.
Yeah. When the truck goes up, the palm tree with the Nazi symbol on it, like that, and it always reminds me because that's on the truck. Oh, what is his name? Oh my god, oh my god, that's going to bug me. Anyway, but yeah, that always reminded me of that. But then we get into after that, we get, and I liked it. I don't mind because it's black and white. It probably worked, and probably Jay, because you're the youngest. How did you feel about the next couple of scenes? Is the next bit is just World War II footage?
Well, to be honest with you, and I don't mean this in a bad way towards the rest of the movie, I found that to be the most interesting parts of it. I just really like that kind of stuff. I like documentaries, things like that. So to see actual footage was just, I don't know, I genuinely kind of thought it was pretty interesting. So again, not to pick on the rest of the movie, I actually really enjoyed those parts.
It does give it some realism, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
And
it makes it feel.
I'm actually seeing somebody actually die there. There's a bit when they show it later on the beaches. And I'm skipping it, and the guy falls down. You're like, oh, that actually was a guy. That actually did. You know, there's something like that. And even with the ordnance dropping down from the aircraft, and I know they added some sound effects like. Right. And you're like, okay, I'm having that. It's 1950s, but the rest of it, it's really interesting.
Yeah, and that's part of what made it interesting was like halfway through, you know, the first, not even halfway through, like within just about the point where I got to that scene where they do add, you know, there's the air bombs are coming down and or they're dropping them and they're adding that sound effect to it. Is when I realized I'm like, oh yeah, this would have had to have been actual footage because obviously, you know, they didn't have the capabilities of doing all that stuff back then. So once that kind of like hit too, I was like, wow, really interesting. One, just in terms of the footage, because again, always find it interesting just to learn about, you know, history in general. But, you know, to see actual footage from the points of history that we can is always really interesting. But then again, the idea of that it was a clever little way to just add a bit of realism to the movie. I enjoyed that as well. But then again, it also made for that cool blend of, you know, movie that with the narration of the guy who's, you know, it's all from his perspective of researching Rommel and all that. It just made a really interesting blend of like documentary film type of thing that was fun to watch.
It did. It felt like, you know, one of them modern movies, not Cleopatra, people, not Cleopatra, but when they kind of do the kind of, they have like a historian talking, and then they have like that
kind of narration,
like literally, they have like all little clips of, you know, like I don't know, Vikings attacking a settlement, but they have actors doing it. It kind of felt like that. The dramatization.
It's very.
But I like I think this is where in the movie it cuts off from the sound over, doesn't it? Because I think this is where the movie shifts slightly. It's because they are portraying that the Germans are holding their own in North Africa, and then Rommel instantly is in his bunker, and then they kind of go, they're not doing that well. They're losing everyone, and then he's still ill. He's still like sniffling away. He's still got his cold, whatever, you know. He's still not well, but then he gets one of his officers comes in the room, doesn't he? Like, he just goes for a coffee or water. How are we doing? And he's like, you know, it's terrible out there. You know, we need to make a decision what we're going to do. And then they get the communications from not just Berlin. This is direct from Adolf himself. And what, like, is this the first time? I'm not sure. They call him what's it? Something corporal. What do they call him?
The Bohemian Corporal.
That's it. The Bohemian Corporal. And they kind of go into, this is literally, he is, I suppose you get it in other movies. You do get this reference quite a lot. And it'd be, you know, I'm guessing there are myths and legends about, you know, the man, of what his mindset was at the time. But I think they go on like astrology. Oh my God, he's his
Yep.
astrologists around him
Yeah,
are telling him in what
was
to
it
do.
horology or something like that?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, something,
you
yeah.
don't win wars based in horology or something like that was a line. It's interesting.
Yeah, and it was good. And then they get the call, and Sandy, is it exactly what they said? What was that? Was that the message?
Yeah, and you know, we see this in other parts all throughout history where there's a leader somewhere thousands of miles away, hundreds of miles away, who thinks they know better, and they say surrender is not an option. You're going to, you know, victory or death. Now, Eddie Izzard has a penchant for history and had done a stand-up routine regarding, you know, historical facts, Star Wars, all kinds of cool stuff, and went into this whole um, set of tea and cake or death, victory or death. There are moments in history that I swear, like, you know, he's really plucked out. He's really done his homework. His comedy is so interesting because it's so rooted in fact. And when I read this part and then saw it in the film, I swear he took that tea and cake or death sketch from this actual moment in history when it's victory or death. What kind of a choice is that? We don't choose victory.
Yeah.
And here we're not going to be victorious. Little
Mhm.
man, hundreds of miles away in your safe place. It also puts me in mind of, you know, Blackadder goes forth.
Mm.
And yeah, I'm bringing up comedy when we're talking about serious history, but good comedy knows where the ridiculous lies. This is ridiculous. The decision
Well,
of
one of the
no, that
officers before you go, one of the officers even says that this is we're not dealing in medieval times. I think he says, doesn't he?
Yeah, something
Something
exactly.
like
like
It's
that.
that. And it's just
lunacy.
it is like who says that? Like, you know, it's even to like it's not to do, you know, was it right or wrong? It is what's the what's the last one? The Light Brigade. It is not to do what is right or wrong. It is to do what is said of us, or something like that. It's just like we got no choice. You know, it's just that
Mhm.
whole moment of
Yeah.
like, oh, like yeah, like I think everybody who's watched like you just bought Blackadder, it's one of the saddest scenes because you know what's
It
going to
is.
happen, and it's
It
the
is.
idiots, Captain Darling and all that. You know, they have oh, hold it, now you've got to go over and all. You know, but it's the brigadiers at the back going, oh, just do it again. You
Well,
know, we might, yeah,
Melton
yeah.
says, you know, I have such respect for the honest Tommies, and you must know I'm right here behind you. And Blackadder says, 45 miles behind us, sir. Like, no, you're not right behind us. But that's exactly, and again, I felt really weird being kind of, you know, thinking about comedy at that point in time, but it 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 nails what actually was going on. It was lunacy, it was ridiculous, and yet they didn't have a choice. Um, but you know, it was beginning to drive, obviously, you know, choices and plans by you know certain leaders to try to not only distance themselves from Hitler, but also then try to end him, which
Mhm.
you know which you'll see later in the film. But this was a no-win, absolute no-win situation. There's no honor in that, and there's no respect for that.
Mhm. I always find, this part of, and this is kind of just a more general thing about World War II, but to see it in film and documentaries, it's always one of the more interesting points is this point of kind of the charade that Hitler had kind of over everybody breaking tremendously when you realize like, oh crap, backs against the wall. We're not going to win this. Maybe what we've been told isn't right and all that. To see it from the people's level up to the high ranking military levels. It's always interesting material, I think, and this movie does a pretty good job with it overall. But I just find it fascinating, given how kind of hyped up on that nationalism he was able to get, people and military and all that going into the beginning of all this. To see this breaking point kind of, or the cracks start to happen in the windshield, so to speak, and then the spider web just growing and growing to the point where the whole thing shatters is always an interesting point of history.
But this is where we learn, as people say, know your history, learn lessons, and don't repeat them, because this will
Seriously.
show like this kind of ideology wasn't the war; it was years before, and it just happened. They got that man who could make that speech, and that's
Right.
what they revere to, and it's like that. And then going into this, but I think this movie, as you say, Jake, like it gives that split down the middle, it gives that divide. And I think this is what the movie, like at the time, tried to do. It tried to divide the Germans, as there are a portion, but they are then the portion, and then they're the people who are against it, and there's always going to be, and there's going to be people to be quiet, and then they're just the. And I think they show this quite well with Rommel later on. If it's true, there's a swaying left or right onto this. He's as I used to serve, and you're in the military. You do not do politics. You do what you're told because of your country. The politics is something else, and they portray it quite well in this. That, going into the next scene is you would get introduced to what's it, Strasbourg? Is it Strasbourg?
I'm gonna be terrible with the names in this one.
Yeah,
Strollen.
Yeah. So like we get introduced, like again, it's defeatism, like on the German side in North Africa now, and Rommel's now again taken ill. But this is the first time we kind of see the first kind of indications of conspiracy going on. So I'm sure he's the Lord Mayor of Strasbourg.
Oh, it is, but his name's Dr. Strollen.
Yeah, but they call him the Lord Mayor. So he's on the SS radar when they meet Rommel in this. His conditions got worse. He's now had to go to hospital. So everybody's there, and this is where the kind of the snippets of undertone of, and we'll go into another movie later, Jay, that you brought up later. But their people aren't happy with the regime in Berlin. They're following a path that most Germans do not want to go down. They're like, there's a discord that we don't need to do whatever Adolf kind of says. So this is where it kind of gets in there. And of course, this is a scene. I love I love this scene. It's great dialogue. It is really good back and forth. You have like the wife and the son who's quite young, but Rommel and I can't be like the Lord Mayor, I'm going to call him, is their dialogue back and forth. It's very this movie where, as Jay said, it's like the action bits are like in the live action is good, but this is a dialogue. This is a dialogue movie. This is very like, whoever wrote the screenplay wanted to literally, we need to make it sound right. We need to make when you speak, I'm interested. When you speak, they're interested. It's literally everything about this scene I kind of like, because it's a very well written movie. Everything they say, you kind of want to hear. You kind of, what they're saying next. You want to say next. It's not just, we're speaking to get into the next scene. This is an important moment of kind of like they make it an important moment in history. And I think that's very well done to like the editors, the directors, the screenwriters in this, because they draw you in of going, what's actually going on? There's something else going on. So I love that bit.
No,
it's Stuttgart. I'm so sorry to interrupt. He was the Lord Mayor of Stuttgart. I had to look him up in the back of the book just to see.
No, I would agree with that status, and I would even say, credit to the actors as well, because when you think about this movie, so much of it really is just a few actors in a room, acting, dialogue, the whole deal. Any action that comes from it is footage that's not, has anything to do with them. So everything the actors are asked to do, they do, which is, deliver the dialogue given, which again, written well, all that. I really like the scene. I also like the exchange between the two characters here. I will say one thing about this whole scene that I found to be the most unbelievable thing in the movie in terms of realism was, as the doctor, his wife, and his son are checking into this infirmary or hospital to see Rommel, when the two, I don't know if they're officers or, the two guys there who take their names and all that,
Oh,
are
kind of
discussing who
stewards
it
of the
is.
bar.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
taking his name. They're like, Rommel, the wife, the son. They get to the doctor, and the guy at the desk, or the officer at the desk, reaches back for this massive book of everybody who must be from the town, I guess, or whatever. It's all alphabetical.
Yeah.
And he flips open this massive book, flips one page, and within 2 seconds happens to find the perfect spot for the guy's name.
That
Uh-huh.
is
That was
that,
the
yeah,
one
that
part
is a bit
that I
stupid.
saw it, and
Yeah.
immediately I was like, I can't not unsee that. There's no way
German
you would have opened that
efficiency,
book so
though.
perfectly.
Yeah,
German
there we go.
efficiency. You never know.
Bookmarks.
But outside of that, no,
And that's
it
it, because
is a really good scene.
but I like that bit as well. For that is a bit stupid. Yeah, he could have flipped through. Or but there are multiple.
Picky,
There's like there is 30 big binders behind him. There are like massive books. So I'm guessing they are all names of somebody. That's what I got about it.
Yeah, I wasn't
They
sure.
they all like everybody. There's you know, the Nazi party they've got names, like, you know, communism did in, like, you know, the Soviet Union did. They've all got names. You're always in a book. You're always going to be looked at if you go into the wrong place. But to go, ta-da, there he is.
Such a massive.
I know. It's like,
flips one page, because at some point the director was like, "No, you have to look for it." And he just picked one page.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's right here.
Yeah, so I like that, but I do like the kind of thing there. Again, that's for the movie, but I did like it how that also set up the train. I'm guessing it's supposed to be an SS or Gestapo. Like that, like then he gets off, but it's showing as well the people who are starting I suppose the attempt, but we're going later, are all being seen. They've literally, you might think you're clever, but you know, you're in a book. They know something is wrong. So yeah, it looks good. So did that play out in the book, Sandy? Like,
the train scene is not in the book. No.
Oh, interesting.
No, but I mean the whole thing about they had their eye on the kind
yeah.
of.
Yeah, actually there's quite a bit in here about and then there's the problem, right? We're at a point where everybody's in a book. You know, well, I'm looking at you, but you're looking at me. And the people who are writing the book are in the book too.
Right.
You know, we're getting to that point where there's total paranoia and it's going to collapse. This whole thing is going to collapse because no one can trust anyone and no one can say what they really feel, but everyone feels the same way. A lot of people do. And they just want this to end and they just want this guy to go away. But no one can say it in public and no one can say it. But so they're all keeping book on each other and they've all got info on each other. And funnily enough, or I guess surprisingly, Dr. Stolen, he survives several attempts to arrest him. And then after the assassination attempt occurs, he wasn't harassed by the SS anymore. He escaped arrest when all the other conspirators, and they knew he was involved, they knew he was passing information, but he escaped arrest. And in the book it just says the only thing that you know, even he was surprised that he survived. And it said it may have done something to do with having an ex-commissioner of police who was a good friend of him, but to Strolin himself, it all remains a mystery. Meaning, gee, I got lucky. Everybody else got, you know, was found, was executed, was thrown in prison, was, you know, self-deleted. And then, of course, the chaos after the war was a whole different situation. But yeah, he survived. He escaped. He kept doing what he did until he didn't have to do it anymore.
Interesting.
That is good. So in the movie, I guess that again we've got a bit of narration, and then it kind of time jumps a little bit, like Rommel's back from the near dead again, and this is where we get that he's inspecting the western line of the French kind of beaches, but not that he goes into later of like they predict an invasion. They're the only thing Montgomery, and I think he said this is the first time Eisenhower kind of gets
Eisenhower's
mentioned
name
again.
comes up.
Yeah, it's like the eyes now it turns into Monty to Eisenhower when Eisenhower wants it. So like this is not the indication. They never say it that what we get in a lot of movies that this is the point when the Americans join the war. The only reason you get that is it turns from Montgomery and now we got Eisenhower. And Eisenhower is a little bit different to Monty. And this is anybody knows the history, very, very true. They were very two different ideologies of how warfare should be done. But I kind of like that. You got a very much indication now. The Americans are here. And now you've got the Germans are now on the back foot. They've lost the Africa. Now they're sitting there. They need a plan, and you now get I can't remember the field general. So Rommel goes inspects the I suppose now their second front, I suppose you want to call it, after the Russian front. And he goes to like a chateau in France, and I can't remember the name. It's like again, and there's a field general. He's very elderly field general, very well respected, and they kind of I like this scene as well because they
kind of feel each other out.
Yeah, they feel each other. There's been kind of like, you said this about me, I've said this about you kind of moment as well. But there is like, they respect each other. They respect each other for the soldiers they are. And they get pissed because they have their idea. And I think it's even like you inspected, the beaches. What do you think? And then like, Rommel goes, anybody, like there's 50 points where anybody could get through, and literally he goes, Berlin are fixated that everybody's going to come in from the Allies are going to come from Calais. But this is great. Anybody that I like, Sandy probably will definitely know. So I probably will shift more to Sandy in a minute. There was a great, and I can't remember the operation name, but it pissed off one general, Patton, because he was the decoy, because he was the I suppose the more respected general than who had if they're going to go with one man, they're going to go with Patton, and they knew that, and it pissed off. You ever watched great movie Patton?
Patton is an amazing movie. Love it.
Very long-winded. It's a very, again, it's one of these. What's that like? That is what, 70s, 80s?
1970. It won the Oscar in 1970 for Best Film, and George C. Scott won for Best Actor in 1970.
That was a quick look up.
Because okay,
that might have been on
that was a quick thing.
It's going to be in my top 10.
But that is literally, so what the British did allowed is they did dummy decoys of inflatables, wasn't it? Inflatables, of Patton went there, and he was pissed. He was pissed because he was like, no, I need to be done. But they moved all his units, then faked his units, took them away, but left him there on near Dover. I can't remember where it was. If you're going to invade there, all their forces there. So all the German reconnaissance saw all these inflatables, all these tanks units, all these boats, everybody ready to go at Calais. And I think this is where this didn't explain it a little bit, is why like all the information, all the intelligence of coming from Berlin say, nope, Calais is the shortest route. This is where they're going to go. Where this is the indication, you can see it on the map. He even points to Normandy on the map, and it's quite funny. It's like this place and this place. And it's kind of like, they've got the ideas like, oh yeah, you are fixated. And I think they've got they call it the 15th division out of there holding, just in case. But then they all know it's stupid. Like the French what they call it, our French friends, I think at this point they call in the movie, aren't doing their job. And it's like, yeah, they're bloody right. They're doing their job.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, it's like, we'll be slow, And also, I like how they give it to the mentality of like, it's the French. They do everything slow.
They
I
do
love that.
everything
But it's
slow.
like, but it's like, yeah, we're going to do doubly slow as well. But like,
It
I
is.
like this. It's a very, now he's got not just the Lord Mayor whispering,
Mhm.
there's now discontent within the. Remember, this is the German military. This is why I keep on saying there's two different divisions, because this is
Yeah.
German officers who are, I suppose, even across before this, are well respected. Even after, German officers are
Mhm.
very well military organized. So when you have now, you got the two kind of well revered Rommel. He's done that, and now you've got the field. I'm sure he's a field marshal. Is he a field marshal? Isn't he?
No, I believe he was a field marshal.
Yeah, the field marshal is like, he even gets everybody gets that, go out the room. I need a kind of,
Mhm.
and he sparks up his cigarette, and he's just very coy about,
Well,
I'm
there was-
old. They're not listening
Yeah.
to me. You're gonna realize you can shout and scream. This guy, the Berlin, the people he's around have an agenda, and they're not gonna listen to us, even if we're right. They're,
Mhm.
and I think he even calls it, the corporal as well. He goes into like that, and I like this bit. Is like they're the slang terms of Adolf is like, yeah, he's just a corporal. He's just the corporal. Like that. Like, I do kind of like those, because they're like kind of in a way is like they're trying to show, look, he may be in charge, but he's still a military idiot.
Mhm.
Right.
He's like that. So I like that.
So the operation overall, the Allied intelligence operation, which you would have in every major war, right? You'd have this intelligence, misinformation, and disinformation campaign. And in World War II, it was called Operation Bodyguard, and it included multiple different activities in one that Abe referenced in the chat, which was Operation Mincemeat, which was the the soldier who had been killed, who they used to decoy an intelligence officer carrying fake military documents that they had hoped would be discovered by Germany, and it was discovered by
And
Germany.
a very fun movie. Yes, it is
And
a
a good
very fun
movie.
movie.
I like that.
It's what, 2 years old, 2 3 years. It's a very good
It's
movie.
not that long ago. It's
Yeah. It's
trying to
a
think.
very, it's not groundbreaking. It's just fun to watch.
Just a good. It's one of those good ones.
Mm.
But the operation that you're talking about with Patton is Operation Fortitude,
That's
and
it.
there's a Patton, amazing military officer, really groundbreaking for tank and infantry warfare. Right, in World War I, he honed his skill for commanding heavy equipment on the battlefield, and it's illustrated in History Channel did a whole series on like innovations in war, and they spent a lot of time on Patton and Churchill, and they also spent a lot of time on the men who um, like learned their craft in World War I so that they could hone it and apply what they learned in World War II. And Patton was certainly one of them. So incredibly, um, just fantastic military mind, and a go-doer and a go-getter. The way he treated his troops, unfortunately, was not respectful or encouraging. And he had an incident um, with a soldier who was suffering from what we would say today is post-traumatic stress disorder, and Patton just hauled off and decked him. Um, in a way that he was in the hospital, and I believe like it made the news like quite quickly. Um, I'm not sure if it was if that particular incident was before or after his not demotion, but his transfer to Operation Fortitude. It might have been a different incident, but it were those sort of things that kind of push him down. Now, it was important to the United States government to give him a job that was really important, so that there would be a graceful adjustment in leadership. And this operation was seen as so very important. And yeah, there were blow up plastic tanks, and there were these great big huge tarps. I mean, huge tarps all sewn together that from the air looked like just a normal road. And it was over a bomb making factory. There were other huge tarps that were meant to look like planes, and they were put in the place where the planes weren't. And so it was all this deception, and a lot of the military contractors at the time, I'm sure good old Martin Marietta, Lockheed, Northrop, all those good, you know, companies that were helping toward the war effort, were all contributing toward that. But it worked. Today, we would be doing all of that electronically. Today, our deception is electronic. It's hacking. It's hacking data. It's using social media. It's putting fake news out there. That's the exact same kind of operation today as what they had done in Dover, or actually north of Dover. But one other, historically, right? The shortest distance between 2 points, or the what is it? The quickest distance between shortest distance between 2 points is a great line. Is a straight line. I can't say it. Is a straight line, and the straight line and shortest distance between the United Kingdom and France is from Dover to Calais. That's where the Eurostar goes. That's where the Channel Tunnel is. That's how you get to Europe. From time immemorial, immortalized in works of Shakespeare and Henry V, crossing and landing in Calais. Why not?
But that's the thing, is like, that's
thought.
why
Like, why not?
everybody from, like, you got back from the days of the Romans, everybody knew, and Hitler knew it. You do not go to the longest point off the English Channel. It's a choppy sea. Why would anybody risk it? And they went in Normandy. Literally, let's near enough go the furthest point.
From coast to coast, from Calais to Dover, you can see on a clear day. So,
but I must say, there must have been some egos. You have Eisenhower, Montgomery, Charles de Gaulle, and Patton. Gee, imagine them four in a room. You were like,
and throw Stalin in.
Like,
throw Uncle Joey in the mix.
Yeah, you're like,
remember?
Wow, there are some egos. There are literally.
Well, that's why you have to see the death of Stalin. You talk about egos. You have to watch.
Well, it's on the list. It's on the list.
It's on the list. I know.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I mean, this was all about. Remember, when the United States joined the war, it was, yay! Here come the Yanks. With all of our military might, with all the material, with all the planes and ships and everything. But it took forever to get there. We're talking about crossing an ocean here. So even though, you've got the whole might of the American military. Oh, by the way, we're kind of fighting another war on another side of the world at the same time. We're fighting Japan in Japan. We're in the Sea of Japan. We're all across the Pacific. Look at a globe. Spin your globe, people. The Pacific is huge. And so, yay, the Americans are coming. In reality, we got to make do with what we have. And we got to make the best of what we have, and the best of, and this is where the brain power has to come in. And you've got, in the Pacific, you've got MacArthur, who also had his own incidents, not so good treatment of people. But you're bringing in the brain power now. You're bringing in Eisenhower, you're bringing in MacArthur, and you've got leadership that knows that they have to employ the smartest people. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and then later Harry Truman, know that they have to rely on their military leaders, and they do so. And that is something that Hitler would never do, trust anyone else but his little self with decision making.
And his little circle. Let us say that literally his inbred little circle. Let's call that.
Mhm.
It's literally a people who are clinging on. Like, you know, when you get like you need a no man, but if you're surrounded by yes men, you're always going to do it wrong,
Mhm.
and that's what. But people, you know, tagged on for Hitler because you know he got that. You know, I say it like the British, US, Canadian leaders or whatever, the French, Free French, the Commonwealth. They're not going to do what Hitler did. If you said, "I think you're wrong," you're gonna get strung up. Let's say that. Well, let's say a firing squad in the main thing. So this is I like how this movie portrays it very subtly. They don't go into that historical fact because this is I say like 1951. Everybody knows what happened, but they subtly like showed like the disdain, the I say you know everybody like you don't like everybody knows that Eisenhower is. You know if you're I suppose, oh my God, if well, hopefully, if you're in your 20s, you know who you're watching this movie, you know who he is, but they don't need to say Eisenhower, America. They don't need to
Mhm.
like. It's not that.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be that in your face. You know, like Montgomery. You know, everybody who like when the film was released, these names, you know, you should. Well, you're definitely gonna know. Like you know, and then later on, you're gonna know. You know, and nowadays, I would even say like if you're very young, this is a good movie to watch. Like you got all that kind of Second World War different side to it. You know, like Saving Private Ryan, where it's very you know what you're gonna get. You know what you're gonna get, but this is a different war story to it. It's like that because that betrays one element very strongly, and this is completely different. This is kind of giving. I suppose this is like it's very strange. This is when what you got West Germany and East Germany. This is literally the Cold War is become things. You got the Korean War coming in, just started. This is a very propaganda movie to kind of sow the ties of like disdain of look we are you. I suppose this is a very we are European. There was a difference, but it was only a small amount of people that
Yeah.
ruined like I suppose like it's like what's it the phrase what a bag egg in a basket one bag what's it called one bag
One
egg
one bad apple
one bag
spoils the
apple yeah
bunch.
yeah 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 yeah
Jeez,
yeah
I'm
this,
losing it today. It's a
yeah,
bad
yeah.
apple spoils the basket, a bad
It's
banana
cold.
spoils the
This is why I
bunch.
say it,
Man.
it turns when the daylight saving times is going to change. Everybody starts leaving around Halloween. The moon starts coming out.
Oh,
That's it.
can we do detour on the moon? This Are you having like the super hyper
Oh
hunter's moon
my!
right now? I can't
Yes.
sleep at night. It's too
Mhm.
bright. It's so
I know
freaking
we
bright.
yeah we have a blinds and curtains, and I'm like, what is this going on? Like,
It's like daytime around
Yeah, it's
here.
crazy.
it is mad. It's great. I love that kind of thing. It all it needs is a good storm. I love it. I would love it.
Ooh, good
Yeah.
for October, good spooky season. And also just to derail though, not derail, but so this morning my dad joined me for my daily hike this morning because we did go to finally the World War One memorial has finally been finished in Washington D.C. and it's really a very nice. It's an entire park. It's called Pershing Park, and the last piece was this intricate bronze relief sculpture that just kind of carries the life of a soldier from the day he leaves to the war until unfortunately the day he dies. And it is so moving. And then on the way back from walking there, and we took another. We ended up at the Eisenhower Memorial. Now we didn't get out and walk it because my dad was a little tired, but I've been there before. What a nice memorial! And again, if you're in Washington D.C., there's memorials everywhere, but kind of would say everyone's going to go to the Lincoln, the Jefferson, the Washington Monument, of course, Roosevelt Island, FDR Memorial. You're going to go to the big ones. The Grant Memorial is right in front of the Capitol. It is stunning. But the Eisenhower Memorial, like, oh, and you learn about Eisenhower and you learn about, after the war, 2 presidents later, he becomes president. And very dedicated to education. So he really helped to develop our Department of Education in the United States, as well as his memorial is right near Voice of America, which is the broadcast radio for the armed services around the world. And just a really nice tribute to him and all of the investments he made in labor rights and all kinds of cool things. So sorry for the detour there, but I just remembered I just went by the Eisenhower Memorial today.
Yeah.
No, that's
I
very
must
cool.
say, like, just I'm going to detour things. Like, there's one great, anybody, I have to send it to you, Sandy. Like, there is a great U.S. Air Force memorial service, but it's ground and thing in Cambridgeshire. And
Ooh,
I can't remember things, but it's literally in the middle of nowhere because that's where the bases were. But
ooh,
it literally is this great like globe, like they have, and they have these markers on it, and it's literally they pinpoint of the birth to where they got into Cambridge, and then they do every route they ever did until they died. And it's literally this
wow.
great globe, and it's like amazing, like because like everybody forgets, Americans aren't always from America. Let's say like they had their like it is like you have your um your insights of like immigration. Like so it was like
That's
showing this
so
like the
cool.
immigration path, and then literally then the base, and then this how many I suppose what's it called, it like runs they did, and then
Mission sorties, yeah.
mission, so like, and then there's a stop, and it's literally like you look at it, you're like, wow, it just gives that like
Oh,
it's really good. I have to send you the details.
I'll have
It's
to put that
really
on my
good. Look at the
list.
map. It's a map
Is there
like
a
this.
train that goes there? Can I get there when I'm in
Oh,
your
it's literally it would be hard to get to. It's literally, I mean, it's in the middle of
okay,
nowhere. In the middle of, nowhere. And you come across,
cool.
and literally the American government back in the day, literally they went all to town. They went, this is
Mm,
one of the biggest ones, I think it's in the UK. And it's literally, you're like, wow, that's how you salute somebody. It's like, wow, there's a lot of that, because it was
that's
next to
nice.
also what happened there is there was a nurses base. They got literally decimated on a bombing run. So you have all the nurses there and all that. So it's like literally, it's huge. Literally, the grave,
Oh, I'll have to
like
look that
the
up.
site is
I've
like
been to
huge.
the,
Basically, it's beautiful. Like they've done it so beautifully done. You're like, that is so respectful. That is so respectful. So
there are so
there's
many,
good. Yeah.
throughout France and the UK, so many tributes of gratitude to American soldiers that gave their
Mm,
lives during both world wars in right across your courts of justice,
mm,
right on the Strand. That little tiny church in the middle of the road, I think if that's St. Clement's, I think, but that is inaugurated like quote the US Armed Forces Chapel, even though it's an old British church. And when you go in there, um, the pulpit, it has, it's kind of a very ornate eagle holding up the lectern, but it is definitely the American bald eagle. And then there are different stained glass windows that commemorate like the Blitz and different parts of the war, but also the American Air Force kind of coming in. And
mm,
there's a lot of red, white, and blue. So there are a lot of those places, and I think it's nice. I think it's nice to know for those handful of World War II veterans who are probably still alive, just a handful. Um, I think it's nice that they feel still appreciated that way. It's pretty cool.
mm. And keep it going. That's what I say. Like as a
Oh,
myself,
absolutely.
literally just keep it. Like that's where like don't degrade them, support them.
Yeah.
You support your future. Anyway, on to that note.
Back
Like, oh,
to the
we went
film.
off tangent for like 20 minutes. Like that's
That's
it.
what
But
history
yeah.
does.
This is a very historical, like kind of nuanced movie.
Yeah.
So we get the next one. We go back to the Dr. Rommel is again. He's back. He's back home, isn't he? He's back. I don't know if he's sick at this time. He's not with a command really like that. He's back home. This is where the the clues, the kind of the puzzles start to come together. The kind of conspiracy to assassinate Adolf Hitler comes. And Jay will talk about a movie that he saw later with Tom Cruise. Anybody remembers that? But this is where the Doctor kind of shows his hand in a very polite way. He's kind of like, we are that. And then you can still see Rommel. He is a man of orders. He is a man of I don't know what's the proper word. He's kind of belligerent. What is the thing? He's like
loyalty. He's very loyal to
loyal.
soldiers, country. You know, even if not so much, you know, the leader at this point, he is still, you know, loyalty to his country, to being a soldier, to doing the job of a soldier. You know, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think he's even makes the point like it's I'm a soldier, you're the politician, he's our leader, but this, you know, the people, you know, they rely on me to be a soldier. You know, it's like that. I'm the soldier. They're, you know, like that, and it's probably a true time. Like this is what I can't remember how long this is in the movie, but this is literally coming up to D-Day. This has got probably year out, probably 6 months out, maybe like that. And this is where everything's turning for the you know, they're on too many fronts. The Russians, you know, have gone, you know, down there against them. Like that is now their second front. You know, the upheaval in Italy is now happening. You know, the Mediterranean is a mess. Africa has been lost. You know, and you got snippets near enough, literally pockets of, like, I suppose not resistance, but you kind of got pockets of German outlets all around. But they're getting squeezed in. They are getting squeezed in, and they're not getting, like as you say, a
reference to not trusting the Italians. Like that, it's all falling apart. It's all falling apart.
Yeah. So you get that, and then this is where the Doctor kind of shows his kind of hand. And again, it's these. I'm not sure. Like James Mason is Rommel. I have to look it up. Who is the Doctor?
So Swollen is by the name here.
What is his name? Doctor. I can't actually see. Here we go.
Oh, I went off that page.
Cedric Hardwicke. There you go. Cedric Hardwicke. There we go. Like, but they're throughout this movie, when they get into scenes, is very. As I say, like what's the name? James Mason's British. Let's say like that, but it's very that kind of stage, that kind of stage presence. You know, that old British. We went to theatre. We went. They act together. They know how to like that kind of. You know, Sir Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen. They kind of got that dynamic when they're on set. This is how we act. Boom, boom, boom. They know how to deliver a line, not just for like the TV, but they know how to, you know, like they would, if this was a play, you could see them, you would be, oh, because every time they got on scene and they acted together, you're like, oh, I'm listening. They know how to deliver that line to make you stop what you're doing and listen. And I think, you know, like actors, like, you know, Sir Ian McKellen, they know how, when he talks, you want to listen. You want to hear that every word. And this is, I think, great for the both of them on this. And like, what they're talking about is like, it's up. It could be a very short scene, 100%. But what they talk about, the dialogue drags it out in a perfect way to make you go, huh, I know what's happening now. And like the audience at the time definitely would know what, you know, where it's going to go. But I just love their back and forth. So it's good.
No, I agree with that. And I would even add the back and forth with George Mason's character Rommel and the other field marshal is also really good. I thought those were kind of those two different sets of duos, both including Rommel. stood out to me as probably the best.
Yeah,
Some of the
the
best
next
scenes in the
scene.
movie.
Yeah, the next
Yeah,
scene is
right.
cool.
Because we go
Great.
right back to those two again, and
Yeah.
it's just the kind of back and forth that they have as well is, just as good.
Yeah, but I like this because I think this is I think it's now you get to see Rommel's wife,
Yeah.
That's
and
a
she's
Tandy. Miss
yeah,
Daisy.
yeah, and literally she's a small part in it. Oh wow, does she deliver a performance?
Yeah.
She delivers a performance because like
Stage
you
actress again, stage
is it
trained, classically trained actress.
because I like whatever you think. Every time they're in love. They are in
Mhm.
love. They are very. I suppose like if you want to put it like yes, we've got to give that front, but we are that how they give their performance as a couple. I was like, oh yes, like that. And I forgot about that in the past. Like, yeah, now I see this like performance. Like this is the we're getting up to when like his son has joined like I suppose like a young officer, hasn't he? And Rommel after this exchange is going off again. And it's that again that back and forth of like I'm I've got to do this for Germany, and she's really supportive. They're in love, and I love the little bit on this. I think it's this bit is where he goes back, and again the I suppose you would call it the German media, the propaganda outside his house, photos everywhere, bang, 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 and he's like, enough is enough. And then he like, it's like I like how every couple has their thing. Every couple, if you've been with them a lot, me and my girlfriend has a good night. That saying that you would ever say every morning, everything, them little slight things. Just you just say it because you're saying I love you. You don't. It's not the word I love you, but you do certain little things, little things that just they know it, you know it, and this is what happens in this movie. And I love that bit is when this is the picture I brought up here is where she says, goodbye, darling, and he just gives it back, and it's just that, and it's that obvious, like they're whispering to each like from a distance, they can't hear each other, but it's just that like that's what they do when he
Mhm.
leaves for service. That's what she goes to that window, she looks down, he knows what she means, and he knows what vice versa. I love it, because it just gives that normality of that's whatever you think of any person,
Mhm.
that normality in a relationship is always going to be there. That little thing that everybody does. That silly little saying, that silly little remark. Yeah. And there you go. I do. Yeah. A little tap on the head,
It's
But
funny because I was just gonna say what I do to my husband is I pat him on his I pat
there
him
you
on the
go.
top of the head
But it
because he
is.
always
It's
goes
like
to
literally.
sleep before I do, and like so before he'll be ready to go to sleep and I'll still be working or whatever. So I always walk by and I just give him a pat on the head and then I go about my business. But that's
But
always
that's it. But he knows, and you know what that means. You don't have to literally. I love it. I love the moments. And Jay, newly married, you've got them things.
Oh
You've
yeah,
already
for
got that
sure.
that,
For
that
sure.
little and it's between you two. It's
Mhm.
between you. It's like it could be the most stupidest little saying ever, or it could be a little like something you do. And they know it, and and I like this in this movie. I
Yeah.
like that how that relationship for the man and wife has been developed. But again, for the movie goer, 1951, it's normalizing that German officer.
Mhm.
So
Well,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's a healthy, likable relationship. You kind of enjoy the two characters, because at this point, Rommel's starting to show signs of like, showing that he isn't exactly down with what's been going on and with obviously the leader and all that. Um, so I can see the normalization side of it that was controversial, but at the end of the day, kind of like what Stasis was getting at, there's kind of two different sides to things where like, yeah, there are just humans who are kind of in this situation as well. And, this was a very human moment for these two.
Now, what about the son? So the son obviously is either drinking in the propaganda or is just completely clueless because he says, "Father, where are you going next? Could it be the Russian front?"
Yeah.
Hello, the last place you want your dear father right now is
Right.
the Russian front.
So I'm
Um,
assuming they're going for him being like a younger age, although he looks a little bit older. Obviously he's old enough to
yeah,
be,
I'm thinking he's like
in whatever
they're trying to make him
organization he's.
like 14 or
Yeah,
so.
but he
Yeah.
just kind of looks like 18, 19 because he's just like a
Mhm.
big dude. So I want to say they're going for somebody younger. So it's probably one of like the youth camps or whatever it was, the youth whatevers, where they were just propaganding the hell out of these kids and all that. And he's just representative of that. But it does come off odd because he looks like a young Superman, and all of a sudden he's just talking like he's a young 8-year-old. Like, are you off to fight the bad
Yay.
guys?
Fun. But
Yeah, it
Rommel,
was
he's
odd.
a rock star. He's a rock star. And when we get into like, I'll share later like what the German propaganda machine did after his death. The party wanted at all times to capitalize on his popularity, but also knew that that was a terrible, terrible threat.
Mhm.
Anyone who had popularity that even approached that of the Fuhrer was seen as both a benefit and a threat, and it's a very thin line. It's a very thin line. But yeah, yay, wee! Let's go to let's go to the Russian front. Hooray!
But I think that's
No.
supposed, I suppose that is supposed to show as well to the viewer that they knew probably didn't know how bad the Russian front was for the Germans, and this is shown. Oh look, they're probably going to tell, we're winning, we're making progress,
Oh, of
everything's
course.
fine, like
It's
no,
fine.
Well,
It's
it's
fine.
literally you ain't doing anything.
Right.
It's literally the
No.
worst decision you could ever make in your thing is going, let's invade Russia in the middle of October.
Right.
And
And
what are you
him-
doing? Like, it's wintertime. Let's not do that. Like,
Right.
anybody, that's the same. It's again like if you knew us a history, but like everybody would know what an idiot.
Well,
Like
he
anybody
obviously didn't
now.
read Napoleon. I mean, did you not learn from Napoleon? And Napoleon didn't learn from his, predecessors. And
Yeah.
you can go as far back to the Greeks and the ancient Greeks and the ancient Romans. There are things you can't do. You just can't do. And I mean, even today, what's interesting, when you read Sherlock Holmes and in A Study in Scarlet, you read the very first chapter and it's about Afghanistan. It's about Afghanistan 100 years ago, Afghanistan. And it's not very different from Afghanistan today. And that's why in the Benedict Cumberbatch version, um, that's why that version of a Study in Scarlet, I think it's called A Study in Pink, uses Dr. Watson in Afghanistan today. And it's interesting. Well, in this book, in the Rommel book, the first chapter is called Benghazi. Well, we've obviously had a lot of modern history in Benghazi, and you read this chapter and you're like, oh my gosh, we never learn. And what we never learn historically is that we can't conquer an environment. We can't conquer the Russian front. We can't be successful in traditional warfare in the Middle East, in Afghanistan. We can't win in Vietnam in a jungle. These are things that like we can have all the great military tactics in the world. We can't beat an environment. And that is the Russian front in a nutshell. Everybody thinks as long as they have enough fur and thermal underwear, they'll be fine. But they don't realize that the oil in their vehicles freezes. Forget about yourself. You can't do a darn thing. That the air
Well,
is
it's even that I've been in there and literally it's depressing as fuck.
Yes.
It is literally your brain goes into, oh my god, it's cold all the time. Even like I hate to say it, like the most depressing thing is when like different to women, but for Jay is when you need a wee. and you got to get it out, and it's cold. And it's like, oh my god, it's cold. Literally, this thing is cold, and it's like that, and it's literally, it's so depressing. It's literally is so depressing. It's little things like that. It's like getting your hands out, and like, and getting like have a cigarette, like back then.
Mhm.
It's just lighting it up, and you can't because it's just bitter cold. You just want that.
So you
You
don't
just
even
want
want to
that
hold it
moment.
either because your hands
Yeah,
gotta be exposed. They
yeah,
can't be in your
you,
pocket.
yeah.
It's terrible.
Yeah, and it's like people getting like, you know, when you have your bed and you're like, it's a cold night and you roll over and you get into a cold spot. You're like, oh, I was warm then, and then you're cold now, and you have to roll back over to get the cold warm bit again. It's just that. It's just that. It's just that psychological depression. It's dull. It's dark, and it's forever ending, and it's getting worse. It must have been horrible for
It
like them all.
it hurts too, to be honest with
Yeah.
you. If it's cold enough, you got wind chill, wind whipping
Mhm.
you. It literally hurts. It's terrible.
Yeah.
The
That's
cold.
it, like, yeah, but like that. That's it, like in like that. I'm guessing it's not like you get like in like some Scandinavian country when it comes over the North Cape and then like in like through like into like the Copenhagen bit of into like Sweden and then into Finland when it's just like bitter. That wind kicks up and it's cold.
Mhm.
Like that's just like there's got to be places in like Russia, but that is just it's just cold. It's just cold. It's just there's no like
It
it's just cold for
redefines
fucking
cold.
cold sake. Yeah, it's just like that. Like you know when you get the wind, oh, the wind chill is cold. You know,
Mhm.
oh yeah, like but then when you just get it when it's just damn,
Yeah.
Oh, it's like
I'm
it's
cold.
cutting. It's
I'm
like
just
it cuts
cold.
your skin. It's terrible.
Yeah, and then there'll be like the Russians. Yeah, you're gonna get places, but they're like, then they're not. There's gonna be used to it, and they're dealing with it.
Yep.
You can deal with it if you're used to it. And the Germans weren't used to it. It's like that. That is a different environment. How much are you going to get? And then I say your supply run has just now tripled.
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah, that
And
and
that's the
that's the other
problem.
part of it. And terrain that is changing, right? A map is a map in okay weather. Yeah, the ground might get soggy sometimes, or but the terrain is not going to change. But in Russia, the terrain change when something is pure ice. That is a change. When snow is drifting, that's a change. And yeah, you're right. The supply lines, the lack of communication, the lack of light, the inability to cook your food because once you kill the animal's now frozen. So you don't just have to cook it, you have to thaw it, chip it. It's just you're living off of gruel um, and hardtack, even in this day and age. So yeah, so kid laughs, hey, Dad, you go to the Russian front. It's like, oh my word.
Yeah.
Someone
But I suppose
educate
that
this.
like the
Wait,
whole thing of like the romance of war for a man, probably not so much today because you've got modern media that can realize it for you. But back then and First World
Mhm.
War, 100%, Boer War, and then back, whatever you want to do, it's the romance of the heroism, the war, the adventure. You know, you're going to a different place. Now it's very, very different because you can have an adventure without, you can visit other places within 8 hours. You're away into a different adventure. That is still, I think, still part of it. I think this part is like that. Like especially the divisions, regiments in the UK were literally, like we have a lot of them like football squads. The whole division of like the like I don't know, Barnsley or something like that. All of them went off to join up. None of them came back.
Yeah,
It's like
there
that
are like high
the whole
school
thing.
classes here.
Yeah,
They say like the whole high school class, joined up and, one came back.
yeah,
These little small towns in the United States were pretty much wiped out in World War II because unfortunately, if you were wealthy, if you were in college, or if you were the child of a politician, you were exempt.
Mm. Same
And
to the Vietnam, wasn't it?
yeah,
So,
yep. And although but some joined up, and if you recall, like the beginning of Band of Brothers, when the survivors are talking about whether they were drafted or signed up, some joined up because they were in a small depressed town. This is still recovering from the Great Depression, and hey, it's a job, it's a paycheck, and I've got to support my family. My dad died in World War One, so I got to support the family. Oh, so let me go fight in World War Two. And there are
Wasn't that whole was it the whole point of
Private
the one
Ryan's.
the one was it like the 101? They go, oh, we got paid being
Oh, yeah.
paratroopers an extra $2 a month.
Yes.
Like something like that. And they were like, oh,
Yeah.
is that whole like, yes. They didn't realize, oh shit, you do not want to be a paratrooper. Like
They did,
you don't want to be
exactly. They got
like a
an extra.
Marine. You don't want to do this. Like there's reasons that they pay more. There's reasons.
They absolutely they did. But that's thinking about the psychology though of the propaganda on all sides. It was so patriotic. Yeah.
Well,
And
what about the guy, like, what's his name with the finger? What's his name? Uncle Sam, is it?
Oh
We
yeah,
Want You.
yeah, Uncle Sam.
Yeah, we want you.
You.
Yeah, we want you.
Uncle
Like how?
Sam.
Like that is iconic. That is like, oh, look at him. He's in blue, like the blue and white. Like and red. Like you. Wow. If I don't do, that is whoever done that advertisement.
Oh yeah.
Wow. Like literally, that is great because it makes you want to go. Well, if I'm not doing my part, who am I? It's great.
So when there were war bond drives, they would print the names of the people who bought war bonds in the newspaper, and they would print them in the order that you got your bond. So there was this thing about being first in line when there was a release. It's not as easy to, today you can go to a bank and buy a bond or go online, but the banks would release war bonds and they would say, hey, on this date, and I have a newspaper of my great grandmother, what she was first in line for one, because her husband had survived World War One and suffered his entire life with PTSD. He was wounded in the Battle of the Meuse-Argonne. That was my great great grandfather, or my great grandfather. And then she had a son headed off to World War II, my grandfather. So she wanted to be patriotic and she was first in line, and she got her name in the Baltimore Sun as the first in line to buy a war bond. And it was that pride. But just like in Saber, I mean, you're sending your kid to, who may not return, but there was just such patriotism around that and such pride. And streets were decorated in red, white, and blue, and banners were flying. And the same, whether you're Italian, German, whatever side you're fighting on. The Japanese obviously had a completely different cultural experience with the war and the way that the war was prosecuted there. But propaganda works on all sides. The German propaganda, however, at even their own citizens were over it. At this point.
Well, we also had.
Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say we also had Rosie the Riveter too, which was another kind of very iconic, in terms of marketing and kind of the way they would push, promoting that kind of stuff to just get everybody to pitch in with the patriotism and all that. Just another example of it.
Everybody do your part. Everybody had a part. Loose lips sink ships, and all those cool.
I think this is where the in the war, this point is where you got propaganda both sides. Is now the British, the Americans, the Allied forces, the Free French, the Canadians are now giving their leaflets.
Yep.
Over Germany, over the Netherlands, over like the Belgium, over into Western France. Of like, this is
you can't win.
You can't win. You can't do. And this is where this is where again we have in the movie, going back to that, we have now they don't actually say it's D-Day. They don't say it's just the Normandy invasion. They just say
I thought I heard them say D-Day, but
the Germans wouldn't have called it D-Day.
No,
I could have sworn I heard the phrase D-Day uttered in the movie.
I'm sure it's not. I'm sure it's not mentioned
internally as I was watching it, but I could have sworn I heard it uttered, but maybe not.
I would like to know, like, anybody in chat, like, have a look when the actual was released. This was called D-Day. It would be quite interesting, but like they give the whole fact. I think we go back to the field marshal he's in a bunker, and I'm guessing they're closer to the coast than is made out, because he's like, both of them, like Rommel's there, they get pulled in after they show, or like I say, Jade, like you're right, Jade, like on the bit when they show the archive footage, as we would call it now, of the landings, and it's just that shots, and I'm always just wowed, just how amazing it was, like amazing of like the scale of that operation. You just can't work. I can never work out in my head, even ex-military, just going, how the hell did they organize that? And it's just like every ship, every aircraft, like, and you had all the background, you had everybody in place, go, and they did it. And I'm like, huh. And then when you see it in that grand scheme, you're like, wow. Absolutely, man. There's one shot, like it's like this like aircraft, but you can see like the cinematographer just kind of gives this pan out view of all the ships, every little one dotted. And I'm like, you can't realize how hard that is. They're like they look far away, but in the grand scheme of things, they're really tightly, closely netted together, and then they've got to deploy. That is it. You're like, fair, like that. And I don't know what beach, like you can't work out what beach it is or what it is. And of course later it's a bit further on. I'm guessing from the like the actual official landings. But you're still like, I'm just still like, oh, that's it. But that's what I'm saying. Like what you said, like Jay, like that is fascinating. Just watching it, you're like, no, and that is fascinating.
I mean, it really is, and it really was some of the best parts of the movie. Again, no disrespect to the rest of the movie. It's just there's something about that kind of stuff, that especially the real footage when you actually see it. But even just reading about it, whatever it may be, there's this weird balance when it comes to looking back, I think, at war, where obviously there's something, it's gruesome, it's awful, it's terrible. The casualties of it, all that, but there is, when you're just kind of looking at it objectively for, what it actually is, you see those sides of it, like the planning, the scale that you're talking about, things like that, like knowing what has to go into that part of it is just, always just generally interesting. It's hard to avoid that fact. So when you see it, it just kind of blows your mind, to see all coming down, the boats, all of that, and just to think, what takes place. So obviously when they're on the ground, what it leads to, in terms of the war itself, getting to the end of it and all that. It's just, I really like that touch. One, I thought it was clever in terms of trying to make a movie about this topic that's not just people sitting in rooms. They made a way to make it feel a little bit more authentic and real. And then
the editing, I think, is right. Like it's a natural blend how they get them. And then because you have the narrative over it, and then it's a natural blend into the, I suppose, real, and then the cinema.
And that's what's so interesting about it, is because you could see a movie today use that same structure, but on those those action scenes, make it the big budget movie, theatrical, fake stuff. So it's like it's a structure you'd see even today when you talk about that type of movie. So that's again another reason why it's interesting, because it was made in 1951. And very just,
and it must have been really interesting, like for the audience, to say, very clever for the audience to watch that, because they probably only saw that in newsreels, and then to see it dramatized like this, like the whole story, and then bang, it must have must have been a realization of the story development of not just like in such and such today, blah blah blah, them old newsreels, like they used to do.
It fills out the narrative more than
and it's like, and they're like, some of the things you're like, this is like, it's a natural step. There's not a there's not a drama within the shots. It's just, this is what happened, this is what it's like, and it's obvious because it's a bit more crackly, but they set it up. I'm guessing it works really well because it's black and white, and it works more better. But like how it then redevelops into like that, and then they have their speech, and like it's all done, and this is where like the field marshal with Rommel are talking, he gets the Berlin call, and he kind of just tells them to. Well, I can't remember the words now. He kind of tells them like you should like after a moment on the phone, you idiot should give peace.
Yeah, you should make peace, you idiots.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I love it because it's like probably what they like he did actually say is like
what
that.
they're all
Like
thinking.
Well, and I
they're
love
all
it too,
thinking it's
'cause
like you absolute idiots. You do not you're not letting the German officers army, the officers who are actually should be in charge, like the Allies are doing, run the show. You're letting this what's the phrase? Sorry, Sandy, the corporal.
Oh, I forget.
Bohemian corporal.
Yes.
This Bohemian corporal.
Bohemian corporal. And it's like that stupid Bohemian corporal take control. He doesn't know what he's got. And this is like, I love this scene because it just shows that like the Phil, he's given up. He's like, he even says like, I'm 70,
Right.
and he's like, they're going to replace me with you in the next couple of days. Like, how could they get rid of you? And he goes, well, when they listen to a bloody Bohemian corporal, who hasn't got anything better to do than read books about something like, I can't remember what he says of books, but then he walks off, and then I like again what Jay said earlier. Their two scenes are great. They've got a little bit of a they respect each other. They're not friends,
Right.
like
It's
the
almost
Doctor and him.
rivalry to a degree,
Yeah.
but more so rivalry based out of disrespect. I think the other one showed
Yeah.
Rommel in terms of what he heard him say behind his back.
Yeah.
But then there comes that, at the end of the first time we see them, there is that little bit of like, Rommel calls him out on it, and he admits he doesn't admit to saying it, but he has, the very kind of like clever little dialogue of something along the lines of like, whoever did say that, I'm sure they're feeling immense amounts of regrets because you've given them ample reasons to, realize they should regret it or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
So by this point, there's a little less of the rivalry and more of just the distinguished kind of respect for one another. And again, just the back and forth, it's between the dialogue, the way they act off each other. It's almost like acting chess. They're just really like, the scenes are very in tune with one another.
Now, this is where the point, I suppose, in the movie, it jumps forward. Now Rommel's the field general, and it now instigates. And I'm going to, like Jay said it earlier, and it is right to bring this up, a Tom Cruise movie. And the Tom Cruise movie is
Valkyrie.
This is where the movie Valkyrie starts. Now, if Sandy, you've read the book, and I'm going to let you lead. What is the premise of the? I'm guessing Valkyrie is the code.
The
name
operation.
I thought that was the operation name, right?
Yeah. And so people who haven't watched the movie or both movies or such and such, this is where a conspiracy what is building up with the Doctor, everybody who is disillusioned by Adolf Hitler, not just Adolf, but his inner circle. And what is Valkyrie? Sandy, go.
Yeah. So there's in addition to the Doctor being the Lord Mayor of Stuttgart, other leading politicians, artists, scientists. You hear later Hitler referenced all the weapons that he could build if he just had the time. He's got these ideas, all of the intelligentsia. He's got to go. Hitler's got to go. This is not going to end well for any of us. And so they're looking for an opportunity, and there comes kind of a conference of certain leaders to go over the next stage of plans for the war. And it's in a kind of remote lodge. I think we'll call it a lodge, where this meeting is known to be happening. And a number of key players plan an explosive device. Careful the words I say. An explosive device that will be planted in as close proximity as possible to the Fuhrer, with the plan to dispose of him through said explosive device. The film, I don't know why, has chosen Tom Cruise in the role of von Stauffenberg, who
my gosh, I get a picture of it. Tom Cruise.
who is kind of the, I won't say ringleader, I hate that word, but the coordinator, because remember, all of these people can't know who everyone else is, right? If we all know who all the conspirators are, then we're all at risk. So, for example, the Ken Branagh character who's playing von, what's his name, Tresca, von Tresca, is not coordinating with he's talking to Bill Nye. He's kind of talking to a number of folks, but in the film is good for, I always appreciate a film for getting people interested in history. So I always recommend, that you get interested in history and you find out the facts versus the fiction. Rommel is not portrayed in Valkyrie, and I even had to look it up while I was reading the book to say, hey, I don't remember him being in
I was wondering.
No, he's not even in the
the
movie.
film.
Yeah, I was wondering that.
Yeah, and he's not. I think everyone
Tom
does
Cruise.
yeah, I think everyone does a really good job. Yeah.
It's not. I say I when this first got announced, I was like, "Ooh, this could be an interesting movie."
So
Tom
I'll-
Cruise, and then you're like, maybe it could be an interest. Oh no, it's not an interesting.
No,
movie.
it's not.
I'll be honest, if you're looking at just this picture, it's not a bad visual casting or anything, like in terms of just like I mean, it looks
Yeah.
fine and all that. It's just
Bye.
I can't take away the fact that it's Tom Cruise. I can't not see
Yeah,
Tom
but
Cruise there. That's the bigger problem.
The thing is, like, you could get if it was more of a gritty drama. They tried to play up with the Tom Cruise,
It almost
not
I
the
mean, I
actual
guess,
character of it,
Yeah.
and that's where
almost
it
like
went
an
wrong.
action type of thing. And
Yeah,
it's
it
kinda like,
wasn't.
not
It need to
quite.
be. It need to be like heavy dark. It wasn't what it would be like if they did what the movie is like. Sorry, what the I suppose what it's about, not the movie. That would be good.
Mhm.
But they tried to play up. Oh, people can still come to the cinema to watch Tom Cruise. It's awful.
Mm.
It is. Yeah,
I don't
it's a
honestly
miss.
remember any of it. I
That-
just kind of
that's
remember him, and then
amazing.
like that's where I learned of the story of that operation.
I
But
that's the
don't
thing.
remember
When I
much of the
watched
movie.
it, I was like, then it came on. I was like, I can't remember that movie. Then watched it again. Then I realized why I can't remember that movie because it was literally
Yeah.
like there's nothing to. It's not a historical movie. It's
also-
people in a film
Yes.
just saying words, and you're like, it's not interesting. Now this
Yep.
like as we're going with this movie, it's people like it's people saying words a lot because it's heavy in dialogue, but it makes you go, huh, I want to listen to them.
You want to get to know
it's
them.
not, yeah, but it's not I'll say, like, it's not the greatest 50s, 60s movie, but it makes you want to learn and makes you want to listen to what actually happened.
No.
Because there's aspects of this movie, it could have been better, 100%. But like it still goes, huh.
It does.
I'm interested. That's a good. Yeah, I get what they're doing there.
And
That's it. Like,
Valkyrie, you have this fantastic ensemble cast.
yeah.
You have people I love to watch act, like Bill Nye and Ken Branagh and Tom Wilkinson and yes, even Eddie Izzard. I think he did well in this. I think he does well in the Queen Victoria film playing George VII, Edward VII. Tom Hollander's in here. All great actors with nothing to say. I don't get to know any of the people. You know who I think I got to know just a tiny bit of Bill Nye, tiny bit of Tom Wilkinson, because they're the older generals, right? They're the older, got to do what I got to do. And if whatever comes to pass, I've lived my life. The scene where Ken Branagh has to self-delete, I thought
Hey, Jack.
was really moving. And just in those few minutes, his inner turmoil, and I feel like because he's going through a lot of angst. He has a grenade in his hand under his chin. I think the angst he's going through is not because of the ending that he will have. I think it's because he felt he failed. I think because he felt he failed in the mission. And now he has to do this, but he didn't do what he was supposed to do. And he probably expected to die had he succeeded in the mission, but now they're all going to die and they've failed. So in this film, it's the same situation. There's a briefcase.
Oh, sorry. Can I just before we get to that bit, there is one scene, and I find it hilarious, and you will find it as an American's very, very, very amusing. Because before that, Rommel goes to Hitler's bunker, where he meets American Hitler.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Literally. So, like the guy, okay, looks like that, but why they had to put a very that kind of neutral American accent,
bland, good old mid-Atlantic accent.
Yeah, literally, it's very weird. Like, because even at the beginning of the movie, when the I can't remember like who the author, who
Desmond Young.
I think
Desmond Young, the guy who portrayed. You have to make him stop. He has a kind of like a European twang. At least it's not German, but it's a European twang. It's more like a Swiss accent. But this guy has a full on. Yeah, he's American. Hitler's American. Literally, it's like, oh, you didn't even bother. Like, yeah, okay, James Mason has he has a British accent. That's it, and then like all that. His staff has that kind of British or very neutral Atlantic, but Hitler is just like, oh, everybody knows what Hitler sounds like. Everybody hates Hitler at 1951. And they went.
You know what? That's right. They all know what he sounds like.
Yeah, they sound like like the kind of thing. But
I mean, in fairness, they know what all Germans sound like, and they just did not do any German accents at this point.
They didn't.
I think Hitler's in this does stand out the most, just because America is obviously so distant from Europe. I think they tried to go for similar to I think we discussed this pre-show behind stage. How Chernobyl did something similar, where that miniseries where they just kind of tried to go for a bland European accent. It still doesn't work. It stands out, and you're like, these should be Russian accents. And in this, you think the same thing. These should be German accents. I think the American one on him stands out more, just because it's so distinct. Where at least the other Germans do have something of a more bland. They do sound English, but it's more bland, kind of at least European. So
it's very strange. I think what I think Sandy said earlier, the British are normally the baddies in the Hollywood movies, and this is the Americans are the Nazis. And it's very
you guys still are too. So we didn't totally let you off the hook in this one.
But literally didn't know. I don't know if it's like it was a 20th century Fox thing, a production thing, or whatever. They were like, nobody's gonna understand it if you give a German twang.
So it's
but we're not giving subtitles, because I'm guessing that the Longest Day. Let's go for that one. What is John Wayne? What 1968?
63? No, earlier
63?
than that.
But they have Germans doing the German parts, and they give subtitles. This is literally Americans giving American accents to a German part. And I didn't know if they when you ever get it, when people say, oh, can you don't know how to speak their language, to let them understand you a little bit more, give that accent. And you're like, they can't understand me. What's the point of the accent? And it's very weird. It's like, who? I don't get what the production company wanted. Like, if you speak, just speak your accent. Doesn't matter. Who cares? But for Hitler,
at that point, if you're
not give German, it
you know what I mean?
Yeah. But for Hitler, that's iconic. Hitler is iconic. That kind of Nuremberg speech. That kind of, that, that he normally does. Literally give that then. give that kind of like propaganda speech, but have him literally, he is so American in this. I was like, oh, okay, I might have missed that the first time round. It's the only bit I was like, okay, but then he's hardly in it, to be honest. Like that. So, yeah,
No,
but it's like,
I'm kind of strict on the accent stuff. Like, just make just do the accents. I don't understand how hard it is. And it's sometimes it's weird choices. I know in the case of Chernobyl, I remember looking it up, and what the creator of the show, the showrunner, had said was that he felt that the Russian accent would be too difficult for audiences to understand, which I thought was or something along those lines. Forgive me if I'm somewhat off, but I remember reading that and being like, why? That makes no sense. Why would that? It's not, we've all heard Russian accents before. It's not that difficult to understand.
Yeah. But I always find
it breaks immersion for me. And I really prefer when they just at least attempt the accent. Yeah. The American one on him was brutal.
Yeah. But I do laugh if we are like just completely off tangent. Could ever any other like programs, like modern day, they will put like, you have somebody from Scotland, like Glasgow. If I watch the American version, they're going to have subtitles. Even though they're speaking English, I can understand it. And I'm like, why am I reading subtitles? What's going on? And then I'm like, oh, because it's American. And I'm like, and it like, is it that hard to understand? It's like, you know, like I have a twang. I have a London twang and I understand that and like that. But if you have people from like Norwich, Bristol, is it that bad? Is it that bad? Like I can understand what's it? Fargo. Where's Fargo?
Minnesota and North Dakota and that area. Yeah. You go bear. Go.
Do I? Yeah, but I can understand it. I don't need subtitles, right? It's very like it's a very.
If you got some,
you betcha.
If you got a new accent, that's a new accent.
If you listen to some deep Bayou, Creole from Louisiana, that one's probably a little bit more difficult to subtitle, so probably help out a bit.
Yeah, but that's different accents. Why do I? It's English. It's English. Right. It's like like you get Skawachua or something like that. You're like, oh, it's still English. It's just,
now
it's different.
I can't wait to tell you my fun fact about the actor who played the Fuhrer.
Oh,
are you ready for a little information about Luther Adler, who's the actor who only had ever played in bit parts, right? So maybe you didn't want to play the Fuhrer. You know what I'm saying? If you were a well-known actor. Let me read to you. The actor and Broadway director, Luther Adler, was born into a Yiddish theatrical dynasty. One of 6 children born to Jacob P. and Sarah Adler. His father, the biggest star of Yiddish language theater, was considered one of the greatest American actors. So what does that tell you? If he's in Yiddish theater.
Interesting role.
1951, then you go, huh, okay.
A Jewish actor played the Fuhrer. A very Jewish actor.
Interesting.
So amazing, though. His career, like I said, he played bit parts, but also was a director and came from an entire family of entertainers. And no slight to his, that was his accent, and that wasn't his choice to play it that way. I'm sure he was directed to play it.
But the thing is, like how he plays it is really good. He plays Hitler really well.
Like the energy, that spasm, screaming was all there.
You just go
mannerisms.
You just go, oh, like why? Like because I like the rest. Yeah, I like you get early on. You get distracted by the British accents, the American accents. So like you just go okay, but when you come to Hitler, you're like, oh, yeah, okay, playing it really well, but what's going on? And like in the movie, like you just get that like he's back and forth with Rommel, and Rommel's really stern. He's being very respectful. He's being the soldier. He's trying to tell him like, we've lost. You need to move everybody back. But he's really like, and I like the he gets angry. You always say this. You always think we're wrong. We're always, when we're winning, and when we're losing, you're the defeatist. You're defeatist. And like, what do you want me to do? What should we do? And he's like, we need to. He's kind of in in a very polite times, he's saying you need to retreat, you need to like ask things, but he's just like, I will give you the information, and it is up to you to make the decision or something like that. I like that because that is such a soldier thing, military thing to say to your superior. Is literally like, I've given you the information, you know I'm right. Fucking listen to me. Like,
What you
I
need to
love that.
hear is fucking on you.
So many times I've just gone, literally, this is this is what I'm giving you. This is the true information. Is up to you to make you literally, and how he's like he emphasizes up to you. And I did it so many times in the military. Like, it's up to you, sir, to give the correct information back to me. Get like that, and he's like, and they get really pissed off because they're like, ugh. And you're like, no, this shit matters. This shit matters. It's not me saying yes or no, fucking that. It's literally, I like that as a ex military. Is this position between somebody's a fucking knob, and I'm going to say that, and it is, if it's Hitler or whatever or other. I've had so many officers like in front of me. You're like, oh my, please leave, just please leave, just literally, we're better without you. And well, one off screen, I'll tell you what happened. But literally, when you're talking to him, you're like, this is the true information. This is what needs to happen. And they're going, but and that is the thing. Or I think I'm right. I love this scene. I love it because it's so true to military as today, and it's probably even more as then. You're like, oh, he couldn't. You're looking at the Führer, and you're literally going, please, just bloody listen to the words I'm coming out of my mouth. Stop listening to your astronomical environment or whatever it was, your little inner circle. I'm there.
And your
I've been
obsession
there.
with science,
Yeah.
which is,
Yeah.
you know, would in any other situation be interesting and motivating, but to think that you're going to come up with brand new rocketry and weapons in minutes, you know, 'cause the war is now, the war is today. Yeah, you have these great ideas, but we don't have them today. And Hitler, he kept saying, I will, but we will build them. Yeah, there's no time. One more point I wanted to share about Valkyrie is, so the entire Operation Valkyrie was actually not the plot. Operation Valkyrie was the established continuity of government plan for if something broke down, if heaven forbid the leadership were ousted, or if the Allied, invasion was successful, how would we handle the breakdown in leadership? And therefore, certain leaders then would take over, take care of the people, do certain things. That was a plan that the leadership, including the SS and National Party leadership, were very familiar with. But in order for it to succeed the way that the conspirators needed it to, Hitler needed to be removed. He had to not be in the picture. And then they were going to use Hitler's own continuity of operations plan to take over, and they were going to then go in and arrest the SS and then establish a justifiable government. But the oaths that the SS took were not to Germany. The oath was to the Führer. So the Führer had to be removed in order to remove them from their obligations under their oaths. And then the military leadership could take over. It wasn't a military coup per se, but it was using the plan that was already in place to take effect after removing the leader. There was also, you might be familiar with the name Admiral Dönitz. So he was considered I guess he was considered safe. Now, other historians might correct me on that because I'm not entirely sure, but he was the leader that was agreed upon by the conspirators to take over. He wasn't part of the conspiracy. He wasn't anywhere near the conspiracy. He was considered a safe guy who was going to be put in place to do one thing. He had one mission: pick up the effing phone, call Eisenhower, and say you win. That was what Dönitz had to do. And so there was a minute and a half later in the war after some events took place where Dönitz was in charge, but it didn't play out in this particular way. But the plan was already in place. They had the opportunity. Now, why didn't it work? Not enough boom. Don't know. The bag was proximate to Hitler. The explosion occurred, and he was barely injured.
But that's what they kind of make out this in the movie. Like you get this like instigate back and forth with Hitler, then it goes into the what's that? The I'm going to be terrible with his name, Grausenberg.
This
Like
one is let's see, which one is that? The von
I come out Strassenberg is the best. That's my
I have
dyslexic.
no
spelling.
idea.
Yeah,
I'm
but
terrible
like
with names.
he places a
Stauffenberg.
that's Strassenberg. Well,
Sounds right.
Germans in the chat, let us know how bad we just said that out of 10.
We're sorry. I apologize.
Where's
but
Hanayama when you need him?
yeah, exactly. So
Well, no, where's Asmodeus? But yeah, we need
Yeah.
some Germans
Or
in the chat.
Smooth. We've got some
Where's
options here.
Smooth?
Where are they?
A few Germans that we know. But I like this, like, because it kind of, you don't know. They kind of vaguely kind of goes that he put the suitcase there, and then at the last moment the map moved, so Hitler had to move down there, and then there was people in the way of the device. You just don't know. You just don't know what happened. Was it a low yield? Was it a misfire?
Was it a metal table, not a wooden table? I mean, all those things
I don't
could
know.
have just
because
needed more boom.
there were a few died in there, but literally, it was a very uneducated assassination attempt because they didn't know all the scenarios of what could actually what around the table, I suppose, like that, and like how knowing how at this time Hitler was like with the I'm being gonna like people want to get against me, you know, blah blah blah. He was paranoid as anything. So how they didn't know that. But in this, like in the movie, like they instantly tell. Like there's a scene just before it where Rommel gets into a kind of a car accident after some ally aircraft kind of shoot him down, and he escapes the like a random attack like that. The vehicle he is traveling in overturns, and he gets really like injured. I like this because in the movie it then quickly with the narrator says that like kind of not Adolf, but his regime kind of assassinate, I suppose is the best way I call it, 5,000 people for the who were in kind of like who were maybe involved, I suppose you are, that in the assassination attempt. And I find that like so interesting and so disturbing. Is like that literally how would you think 5,000 people like that is like, oh,
And
that
yet
person,
Strolin goes free.
yeah,
Right. He's not
yeah,
even arrested. Some
yeah.
of them were not even arrested.
So it's like they just literally, did you answer the phone or didn't you answer the phone? I will kill you, blah 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 blah. Anybody around you, and it's just like this paranoia, and it's showing that in the movie, this paranoia of like the inner circle, and Adolf is just literally getting a bit more. okay, it's all squeezing in on each other. It's
Yep.
all coming in.
7,000 people were arrested.
Is it so?
4,980 were executed.
Like that is
Wow.
literally
Many of whom had
insane.
no clue. Many they consider of those, only 200 were considered actual conspirators.
Hmm.
And some of the actual conspirators weren't arrested. And some of them were immediately, that same night, it says, a few members of the conspiracy, including Stauffenberg, were executed that same night. So that was probably the scene in Valkyrie of
Yeah.
the the characters at the firing squad, and then the Ken Branagh character had escaped into the woods and self-deleted.
Mm.
But and then in the blast, 3 were killed. So 20 injured.
Only 3. That is
3
like,
killed. One
yeah.
died
It's like a
much
botch.
later
It's
from
really botch, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe you say 4 because one died much later from
Yeah.
injuries. So you could say 4 and 20 injured. Yeah, so with all of them in a small space, they needed a better bomb maker. That's
Yeah.
just what they needed.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's interesting to think how things would have been different, had that occurred, how would things be different? But I'm sorry, I want to rewind way back to something you probably said 30 minutes ago about when we're talking about the D-Day landings and all the ships lining up, and I forgot to say, so remember the Americans, yes, were participating in that amazing, the largest military operation in the history of the universe. And they were doing the same thing at Okinawa on the other side of the planet. So if you ever go and look at film, of course, several months later, but look at films of the Battle of Okinawa and look at the entire United States Navy. It looks like the ships are meters away, but it's just ship after ship after ship. And they're just, heading to same thing to finish this war, to do what needs to be done. That's the beginning of the invasion of Japan. And there are some really great restored films from the invasion. They're in color. They're not colorized. They were taken in color. But look up Battle of Okinawa and the actual film, which every day the United States Library of Congress and the United States National Archives digitize and release more and more and more military records and films. So it's just amazing to think, yeah, that happened. D-Day happened, and it happened not at the same scale, but at a massive scale, also on the other side of the world within months of each other.
Yeah. I think a lot of people forget the Eastern, I suppose, like front, I suppose,
Yep.
like that, the East Asian, like Oriental front, like that, even like an amazing, like a absolutely tactical is the sacking of Singapore. Literally, how the Japanese did that, it was violent. It was kudos. If it was the other way around, we'd be saluting them even more. But literally, tactical way of how they did that, and the amazement of like nobody would attempt this, and that is how literally the British got kind of side swung by what happened. Is just absolutely like those moments where you're like, huh, that's clever. That is clever. Like you got like, like you have like a lot in the east because of the different islands in like the Japanese waters, if how that swung, if like just being, ooh, how can we be clever, not just for frontal into it?
Yeah.
And that's what that's what it was. It's not about the forces, it's about they're digging in, we need to be clever.
Yeah.
And that's like that whole like Oriental front. And we have the bridge over the River Kwai, so we might talk about that.
And there, while it seems for those who may be listening and maybe listening to this years from now, who are younger, who feel very distant. Like, I had both grandparents who fought in World War II, and some of you don't. Some of you maybe have grandparents who fought in Vietnam or Korea. But it's not that far away in our history if you think about this. The current emperor of Japan, his grandfather was Hirohito. Hirohito lived to a very ripe old age, and the current emperor of Japan has only been on the throne for a few years. So the prior emperor, who is still alive, the emperor um, emeritus, was the son of Hirohito. That's how relatively close in history this is. I think the current is was Akihito and then Naruhito. But that's how close in history this is, that the current emperor of Japan is the grandson of Emperor Hirohito, who was, on the throne not quite 100 years ago, but who surrendered during World War II in a tuxedo and top hat. I don't know if you all know that
I did not.
he wore a tuxedo and a top hat to surrender on the bridge of the battleship Missouri to end World War II in the Pacific. But yeah, I mean, so I'm sorry to kind of, float over to the other side
It's
of the
quite
earth, but
interesting
there's
because, like,
so much going on at this time.
I'm guessing, like, Jay, I'm going to go for you because you're the youngest, but both, I'm 100% sure both grandparents, me and Sandy, served in, active service in the World War II. Jay?
So my grandparents did not. They are actually foreigners who weren't particularly involved country-wise in World War II.
So there's a difference, isn't it?
Interesting.
It's like that. So that's it. But then, like, you got other conflicts beyond that. They probably were, and I love that. I love that historical fact of, like, mine, very British, very British. One broke his legs on the Isle of Wight. One was served in radar and lived out his life there. Sandy, you're gonna have your own, of course, your own story. But then Jay, it like that because they weren't. I suppose. What are you going to recommend? Like, what are you going to say? The Commonwealth or the Americas, the Allies? They were going to be beyond that. If you go back in time, they're part of a conflict. Like, they are part of a conflict, and that is why I find, like, that whole situation amazing. Like, people forget, like, even like now, it's called World War One, World War Two. It's not a full world war. It's literally them units. Like the Americas, yeah, you're at a war, but it's not a mainland war. There's no there's only, like, since the Civil War, American Revolution, like, or unless you go for the attacks on September 11th, that there's no real attack against the North Americas, I suppose, as you would
And that's
call
why
it.
the Pacific resonated for us because of Pearl Harbor. Because during, in terms of the European conflict, we all had, family there. My grandparents on both sides were Polish, Russian, German to some extent. And I have a great picture of, mentioned like decorating and being very patriotic. And my grandmother and her aunties, they all decorated their row houses in Baltimore with red, white, and blue. And they put these banners for each of their sons who were fighting. And so for my uncle, it was his Polish flag and the American flag. My grandfather, my uncle's brother-in-law, who was very German, it was the American flag and a Swiss flag. Wouldn't have put a German flag
Yeah, fair
on
enough.
the banner because
Fair
that's
enough.
where he's from.
Nice, nice gauging of the temperature of the room there.
Exactly. And then it's just, but it was the bombing of Pearl Harbor that galvanized, because that's our soil, even though it's, out in the middle of the Pacific, that's our soil. But having friends, family, having, not knowing at the time, obviously, because the world at large did not know yet the atrocities of the Holocaust, but having come from Poland, Russia, Germany, the areas where what was their farmland, 100 years ago, were now turned into camps where the most gruesome, hideous acts were being committed. That certainly resonates. So there was a commitment, even though the battle and the fight was not on our soil. However, so there were German U-boats patrolling up and down the East Coast, including up the Chesapeake Bay. So Chesapeake Bay, the Potomac River, on which Washington, D.C. is situated, the Susquehanna River, which flows down from Pennsylvania, which creates the peninsula where Baltimore is. So Baltimore and Washington, D.C. being, kind of critical areas in every war that was fought on United States soil. But there were U-boats that were getting up into the Chesapeake, which sorry, I won't go into it, but Tom Clancy from the area, tiny bit of the inspiration for Hunt for Red October there.
On the
So
list.
there was always the fear of what could come here. So that's certainly, also, but there was also the, American exceptionalism, and people take that term to mean stupid stuff today, and I hate it. American exceptionalism means we are blessed in this country with so many resources, such vast lands that are so bountiful. We are prosperous. Every single person here has an opportunity to succeed, whether you believe it or not, they do. And so we give back to the world. That's American exceptionalism. And that's also the patriotism and the drive to help wherever help is needed. And certainly in this case, no, doesn't explain the American accent, but it explains the Americans coming in and wanting to do their part, not coming in to save the day, not coming in to take the glory, but coming in to do their part, whether it's D-Day or, Okinawa or whatever.
But I think, like as you said, like younger audience would forget that
Yeah.
this is a world war, not just because of geographical locations, it's because of the participants of the war. And I must say, different to the Americas, who had a lot of immigration, but like the Commonwealth, as we know it today, this isn't just a British Island war. This is an Indian, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, West Indian, Fijian, Australian, New Zealand, like you have, I apologize if I miss any country out completely, like Hong Kong, but you have that nuance of like the old empire, the British Empire, that spanned across the whole of the world. Literally, when the call came, they came. And people forget, you salute that people, because they were fighting on the European grounds, the African ground, the Pacific ground, whatever they did, and like that. And like, yeah, the Americans came in, but we still had the Canadians still came over. Like people forget, like, and you had a lot of
Australians,
but you had a lot of Americans who were still drawn to patriotism, like of their homeland, I suppose, in Europe or wherever you want to call it. Like the things we're like, no, we're signing up. We are signing. We're not going to be. They went early. They went early than the call. They were class. Like as a Czech. They the Czechoslovakians at the time, like Yugoslavians, like from America, came over and then fought in the Royal Air Force. It's like that whole the Polish Air Force. You had a lot of Polish Americans came over and went, we're going to fight for the Polish. Like, are we going to be a part of the Royal Air Force? We're going to fly that flag. Like, if you ever look at literally the numbers, the Royal Air Force Polish shot down, they were more than anybody else, because literally you're not just fighting as a country, you're fighting for pride, you're fighting for that, you're fighting for your historical survival. And I like that whole thing there. People forget, and I think they go into like it was just allies, not even Axis. They don't even go like it's allies. You're gonna get they're probably I hate to say it, like if you're gonna be naive, British, French, American, if you're going to be naive, and then
Mhm.
you got Axis, you forget the Axis group. You just go Japanese, German.
Yep. Yep,
That
you
is it.
forget
You
about
forget
Italy, you
everybody
forget
else. Yeah, Hungary. You
yeah.
forget about everybody. The grand
Yep.
scheme of like these countries. They're not just countries; they have dependents, and their dependents were called on. So I
Mhm.
like they people forget. Now I'm saying this because this is our first World War One. Sorry,
Yeah.
First World War Two.
First,
First of
comma,
many, I
World War
believe.
First of
One.
us, and like there are a lot on there. Like, wait till we get to Gettysburg or Gods and Generals, people, and then I'm just going to sit back and let Sandy speak.
Yeah, you just I'm gonna be broadcasting live from Gettysburg Battlefield, live from Antietam, live
There we
from
go.
I
But
will
yeah, we
be
got
there.
this. Yeah, but that like let's say going back to the movie, you got this whole thing of like Rommel. We've got the like he's kind of got past these illness, like for injuries. Let's say he's recovering, so they're suspecting him of
Mhm.
Valkyrie being a part. I'm guessing Hitler did alienate and then isolated himself a lot of like who he wants, and Rommel's, as you said, Rommel's the superstar. He's the Brad Pitt of the situation at the moment, who can be called upon to give that smile at a face and nothing can be done wrong.
Mhm.
The Tom
But
Cruise,
this,
so to speak.
yeah, exactly. But this is where he gets called. Oh, Berlin needs to speak to you. When you can come up here? I can't. I'm still ill. Oh, I need a couple of weeks. We send people to see you. And this is where another great kind of collaboration of actors, like you have I think the two generals go and see him, and he's the field
Yeah.
marshal. So like that's it. So you have one of the generals kind of go like he starts talking bullshit. Let's be honest. He starts going like that, and then Rommel goes, "Can you just? What are my orders? Can you just get on
Just
with it?"
yep.
Like he's just literally waffling. Like he respects Rommel. He knows who Rommel is, and he's just literally in the best way to say it, he's waffling away like nothing. What's going on? So then, sorry, this is a Danish American. So. Yup. Danish now. So he gives him like, here's your orders, and these orders are not an orders. It's literally you are being the state versus Rommel for treason. I think it says on like in
Treason.
the
Yep.
movie, yeah.
Capital
And then
letters.
like
Treason.
and then I like this like it's drawn out, but it's drawn out very, very well. Is literally the moment of like Rommel that he like in the movie, he's an intelligent being. He knows his situation. He knows he's effed, but he still wants to hold it. If I'm gonna be effed over, I'm going to go out on my own terms. I want a trial. That's my and then the other general was like, the Fuhrer doesn't really want this, like, you can do it your own way, and he's like kind of saying you can kind of self-delete, I suppose, the YouTube way. And then he gives him the option of like, you either going to get, what's the French word for strangling? They say
Garrot.
Garrot,
The Garrot.
the Garrot, really terrible way to go with a wire.
Yeah,
Strangled and then can bleed to death, or you're gonna get I think he said like you're like a painless poison that I've got here, where you will not feel a thing and you'll be kind of gone in a few seconds. Even giving them options, Rommel is no. I'm a soldier. I will go out on my own way, and he's still very respectful. I like this. Like the whole scene is like, I know I'm effed, but I'm still respectful. And it's only till he kind of gets the ultimatum of like, you can go that way, but I can't can't guarantee your safety of your wife
Your wife
and
and kid.
kid. Yeah. And it's just like that moment, you're like, like I'm dead. Either way I can go, I can have self-respect and I'm dead, or I can save my family and I'm dead. Whatever happens, the outcome's exactly the same. You could look into history and I'm exactly the same. But I think it's the point, and I think this is like played into the probably into the novel, is he's given the option, but we will tell the people you die from your wounds, and you will be given kind of like a state funeral, as we call it in the United Kingdom.
And he
It's like,
was.
yeah, like we will revere you, like you will still be honored, but you can't say what you think. So I like this scene because it's just there's no way out. There's no way out of that this whole situation.
And it's just like an interesting end for somebody who was so loyal to, the cause that he was on the side of. Essentially the kind of ideal soldier from that perspective, no matter what, side you're on. The ideal soldier, tactician, great at what he does, loyal to the core. So pretty slap in the face way kind of way to go.
Yeah, it was. He was given no choice. Now, in my brain, I thought, oh my gosh, they're lying. They're still not going to take care of your wife and kid. No, they did. They did. It was. It was one of those, I guess, the only honorable thing that you could think these kind of people could do. But they did pay his wife a pension. He was, when he drove off in the car. I don't think they showed this in the film because now the film and the book are kind of coming together. But an hour later, a phone call. By the way, they only gave him an hour to make the decision. That was also part of the. I got an hour. You're giving me 1 hour to make this decision. The assistant that you saw in the house with him, the other German officer, was also a personal friend of his and also someone that Desmond Young interviewed. They were very close friends. And the assistant, he really did say, hey, there's only a few of them. Let's try to shoot our way out of here. Like, we got to find a way to get out. He was so desperate. And no, the house was surrounded. There was no way out. They've already thought of it. The phone was bugged. There was nothing to do. He did tell his wife. He did not tell his son. When
I do like that, the interaction in the movie between him and his wife. I love that because it's like
strong.
like she plays it really well until the goodbye scene. That is exactly as a carbon copy. The goodbye scene I just showed up there is when they say from the balcony. But I like her. She's not stupid. She knows this is the military as it is now. And he just going, do I need to tell you any more? And she's just like, is there any way out? She doesn't need to know. She's not stupid. And it's just like that. And then that's it. So the other German officer's like, let's give it a go. Let's give it a go. But he's like Rommel in the movie is very stern of like, this, it could go worse. We're going to shoot out and run? Then they're going to capture us. Like, I always got that. There's no way they've got us, they've got to be in the middle of home territory, I suppose. There's no way they're going to get out. Even what they're going to do like a day, then they're all kind of screwed. So it's so he takes the honorable, like Jay says, like he's an honorable man. He takes the honorable decision of like the worst decision, but the honorable decision. And I think in this situation, most men, we're not picking up the masculinity, but I think most you're gonna let your wife and your kid survive, and you've got to take the hit. They say you're gonna do it. I love you. don't say anything. I'm not going to see you again. And it's
Right.
hard. It's hard. You're like, oh, but yeah, that is it.
It's hard. So they rang back to the house and to command and said, there's been a terrible accident. Not a car accident, but Rommel has had a brain hemorrhage, and we rushed him to the hospital, and there was nothing they could do. And then the hospital called his wife and kid, and she already knew what had, obviously knew what had happened. All within an hour. I mean, this is within an hour of them leaving. He was granted the state funeral that he was promised. His baton and hat, however, were missing when his personal effects were brought back to the house. And his wife demanded that they be returned, and they were eventually returned to her. There were some other things that she just let go. There were some papers and other personal effects that she thought, she wanted back, and then she just ended up letting go. There was also requests for her to participate in different activities and be interviewed, and she declined all of those. She just washed her hands. She wanted nothing else to do, obviously. You'd be interested to know that Manfred, do you know what happened to Rommel's son, Manfred?
No.
They don't. It's kind of like I say, like they make him out to be like a young, kind of nerdy,
Yeah.
kind of into the party, kind of, and yeah, a hopeful German.
So he was born in 1928. So at this point in time, he would have been 20. No, he would have been 16, 15 or 16, right? He became Lord Mayor of Stuttgart.
Really?
He became Lord Mayor of Stuttgart. So probably not the successor of Strolin, but maybe 2 down. He also earned a CBE. And I don't know what it was for. Perhaps I'd like to think maybe he worked toward peace at some point in his life. You would hope, but he was made a commander of the British Empire as a German. He died again. How close history is to us now. He died in 2013, so that's not that long ago. That's 10 years ago. He died in November, so almost just about 10 years ago, 11 years ago. Sorry. He was the only child of Erwin and Lucia Rommel. And so I thought that was really interesting that he became the Lord Mayor of Stuttgart. Rommel is, again, known in history and respected. The very beginning of the book is this quote. By the way, the foreword to the book is written by Field Marshal Auchinleck, the same Field Marshal Auchinleck who wrote the letter to all the commanders to say, Rommel is not a god, right? So Desmond got him to write the foreword. And he said, an enemy commander does not gain a reputation of this sort unless he is out of the ordinary. Rommel was certainly exceptional. Germany produces many ruthlessly efficient generals. Rommel stood out amongst them because he had overcome the innate rigidity of the German military mind and was a master of improvisation. And even there's that scene, I don't think we talked about it, where he gets that, victory or die message from Hitler, and then he says, is that from himself, or is that from one of the commanders? And the telegrapher says, no, it's signed by Hitler. He says, tell them to send it again.
Yeah.
And tell them to send it again, because rigid German, process and procedure, which I appreciate my German blood, I'm very organized, would dictate, yeah, I got a command, I'm going for it. And he says, send it again. Like, I want to hear it again. What else can I do? How can I improvise? How can I the examples that they used, I think they did refer to like 1 or 2 examples in the film of where he did what they didn't expect him to do, but Montgomery figured him out, but the
Yeah.
Americans in Montgomery had figured out how his mind worked. Probably because his mind was more like the Americans, more like the British, who were more flexible in their tactics. So, maybe they were able to figure that out, but certainly respected him for it.
Is yeah, and then kind of with that, the end of the movie has a little voiceover of the man Rommel of back in North Africa, and kind of the end of. Now, I'm going to go straight to, because I think this is completely different movie than anything we've watched before. Not just because it's a war movie, because it's a very strange bio movie, because it has drama elements and it's so close to the history setting that it was, and it's so controversial. Now, I have different views, probably because of my granddad when we used to watch it and the other movies surrounding this. So I'm gonna have to go to the youngest, Jay. Jay, how, this is probably very out of the the wheel, I suppose, not just the wheel of fortune that we do, the wheel set of not just modern, but kind of older movies that you've probably watched black and white, of course, that you've watched. This is a very different, not just setting, but how it's done movie. So how did you think?
Yeah, so I believe it was made in 1950, or it was released in 1951 at least.
Yep.
So definitely, I'm pretty sure, just off the top of the head, the oldest movie I think I've ever watched.
Next to The Wizard of Oz, which is
Right, of
1949.
course.
You gotta
I
get
always
it.
forget about that one. That one's a staple. But yeah, outside of that, this is the oldest I've seen, and I honestly did enjoy it. It's definitely out of my normal wheelhouse, and I do enjoy war movies, but one this old and in this style, I've it's hard to even say it's out of my wheelhouse because I've never given it the try to see if it is or wasn't in it. So to be honest, it could be in it now. If there's more of these on the list, I actually would be interested. I'll be more excited to watch them than I was going into this one. And it's not to say that I wasn't, interested in this. I just had no frame of reference. So now that I do, and now that I enjoyed this, I will be looking forward more to the next ones. I definitely have a huge appreciation for the way they make these movies. Just from the idea of, and I'm sure not every movie of this era had, the exact same standard of quality in terms of acting and dialogue and things like that. But I did appreciate how, the actors, between the writers, the directors, the actors, the job was to make the scenes with the actors as interesting as possible for very dialogue heavy scenes, and as well as telling the story of Rommel and all that also. But I thought they did a great job. I thought for a movie this old and this dated in terms of the way it was made, that plus the that, like I've mentioned a few times, the really clever way they used the actual footage and blended it in with the movie and gave it this weird kind of tone of dramatization with documentary, with some of the narration and things like that. The whole thing is really well done. I was very impressed for my first black and white movie.
Before we go on scores, then, as Sandy, I think you probably watched this movie before and probably forgot it because it's one of those movies. And then you've read the novel, who's by Desmond. Say again. Sorry,
Brigadier General Desmond Young.
Yeah, we go. How by the now this is going to be difficult because the movie is what it is, and then you've got the novel. Sorry, not a novelization, and the novel. How do the history and the movie?
So I'll talk the history first. I also read a lot of the criticism of the film and the book. So the book and the film are very much the same, more so than probably any other set that I've read of book film. By the way, the book, again, published in 1950. Production of the movie was already underway while the book was getting ready to be published. So the I guess the reputation that it was known that this book was being written, and it was picked up for a film very quickly.
Interesting.
So they're very much the same. The criticism is this from all sides. There are those who believe that this is too kind and too glowing of a story, and it's a short story. You can't even call it a biography because it's really just a few years of his life, right? This is like 3 years, maybe even less. So it's not a complete biography. But the criticism from, I'll call it, the Allies side is much too generous, much too glowing. He's obviously a German military leader and the enemy, and we're praising him too much. He could have done some more to stop it if he was really against the cause. On the other side, I'll call it the German side, the criticism is on him as a person, not on this characterization. The criticism of him as a person is, yeah, we get it. He wasn't fully read into the party. He wasn't fully aligned to the party, and therefore he could have done more. And therefore, there are several criticisms of his choice to end his life. There are several who believe that, even co-conspirators who believe that he should have demanded a trial, because Hitler was terrified of that, because Rommel's your rock star and you're not going to put him on trial and everything will collapse. And so the co-conspirators believed he should have demanded a trial to make more waves. So unfortunately, this characterization, and as a consequence, Rommel gets grilled from all sides. But I think that is what it is. In history, we take sides, unfortunately. I recommend, I do recommend the film, but I want to know more now about Rommel's full life. I want to know why he had the character that he had, rather than someone like a Himmler or a Goering or a Goebbels. I want to know why he turned out this way. I want to know what made him, what were his influences? Who was he looking at? Was he looking at Pershing? Was he looking at the World War I? Generals and, leaders influencing him. So I do want to know more about
But
him.
do you think because he's not the leader, like if you go for a Lee, everybody knows everything about Lee now. Literally, so many novelizations about Lee. Sorry, Confederate Lee.
Yeah,
sorry, sorry, I'm just like saying Lee.
It's
like
a good
everybody knows.
comparison, though.
But like literally, you got that. Like even Jack Stonewall Jackson. Let's go
Yep.
from that. Like you got literally the backstory, the forefront, and what people believed he was thinking at the time. You've got all that. Does Rommel hit that class? Rommel, for me, as ex-military, he's a military genius. He is that. He wasn't especially a intelligent person, but he knew on the battlefield what to do. That's the thing, is like you got that, like you got like we've spoke about Eisenhower, Montgomery, Patton, were they glorified as much as Lee? And even the romanticization, I'm going to say, because you're both American, like the Civil War, the Civil War generals, like you got that on both sides of like not the Confederate side, but also the Union side. You've got that kind of a romanticize of they were bigger than they were, the grandeur of what they were. Does the Second World War give to that? Probably not, because look at then the First World War.
Who do we remember? Like,
Yes,
not
exactly.
many.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So is there that, like, you have that media propaganda in the Second World War that remembers these generals, romanticizes these generals as what they were, but what were they? But then you go back to that, like I say, the you got very British wars. I say like the Boer War. Nobody remembers generals, but then you have, yes, because of modern concept and how many books were written at
Oh
the
my God.
time or just
Monty.
after
I've got
of
books
like
on Monty.
the civil war of the Civil War,
Yeah.
because it was like, the land of the free.
I
I
think
say, like, you got that whole
yeah.
thing, and I know I'm going right off tangent here, but you've got that, you do have that, even like the French Indo War, you have that romanticism, you have that, you kind of, I know you
It
have
is.
that, like, you have that, it's supposed to be the new world, it's supposed to be that free world, but it's that you're all, you can give your own choices on what you can do, whereas the European war, you still got that patriotic against your royalty, whereas the other side, you're a republic.
It's
You
brother
can make
against
your
brother,
own chart. Yes, you
literally.
can make your own. Yeah. So,
Yep.
like, is that why the generals, like, have become this kind of
Mhm.
romanticism of what they actually were as a sexual? They were just doing their job.
Well, what you hit on it. The military, the leadership in Europe and traditional governments, they're a different class. You didn't say the word class, but you have classes. You have classes in Europe. We don't have classes here. So it's brother against brother. And literally, families were divided down the middle in the Civil War. And the generals, these were everymen. You know, my favorite is Ulysses S. Grant. And if you read his biography, they all come from nothing. Now Lee doesn't. Lee comes from an incredibly wealthy, prominent family in American history. He's related
A union as well. Union man originally.
100. He is the head of he's asked to be the head of the army
Oh my
of the
God! Sorry,
United
Jay.
States.
We've got a
Sorry.
tangent. We're
No,
gonna
I
start
We're
talking
going
about
on a tangent.
Gettysburg in a
I find
moment.
these history discussions
But
fascinating. Honestly, I can
no,
listen
I
to this.
I thought
Sorry,
about
Jay.
this.
If Gettysburg or Gods and Generals come out,
Well,
like,
glory.
literally, we might give you give a bit of
I
glory.
think
Yes.
you two and Abe need to do a history
I know.
podcast because I could honestly listen to it for a while.
Oh my
No,
God! Sorry, yeah.
but I did think, I thought about 100%. I thought about Lee and Jackson when thinking about Rommel and how they are remembered, and
Mm.
of course here today we swing the pendulum. We do regard history well, but now we're trying to destroy it, and that's wrong because when we don't learn from history, we're doomed to repeat it. So every monument memorial that we tear down, we lose an opportunity to interpret it and learn from it. And there was one historian in Richmond, Virginia, an African American man who was advocating not to tear down. There's Monuments Row in Richmond that had statue after statue of Stonewall Jackson, Robert E. Lee, Beauregard. You can just go down the long list of all the generals, Breckinridge, and this historian was saying, don't tear them down, but add interpretation. In fact, he had this idea of this kind of a structure that you would put in front of the monument where you could see the monument through kind of a glass or plexiglass view, but all around it was the context of of the monument. And I thought that was a brilliant solution. Unfortunately, all of those monuments were removed. Monuments in Baltimore were removed. Um, I
But
think,
this is what. Sorry, Sandy, just breaking. This is
yeah.
where this movie, I think, does well, and I'm going to ask Jay this question. Rommel, is he a Nazi or a German officer?
I mean, he does seem to just come off more as a German officer than part of the,
Yeah, that
very eager and kind of
yeah,
just
and
super
yeah,
into it.
and
Nazi
that's
party.
what that's what I get at. Like, they was
Yep.
trying to get that division. Like, if you go for like Civil War generals, they have most of them. Like, you go, I say, like, into Union officers, Union generals had slaves. That this is literally the abdication, like like in the Civil War was later down the
Yes,
line, and people forget this. This is where historical fact and then shouting and screaming red flag blah 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 is
correct.
this is where it goes things, because you get more Union officers had more slaves than Southern officers, then you had more educated Union than Southern, but you had this ground of like brother versus brother because they weren't fighting. And this is where I get really annoyed at modern day tearing down blah blah blah, is learn the facts before you do it,
Yep.
because there were certain Union officers that were pro-slavery. There were
George
certain
McClellan, the
yeah,
head of the army for
yeah.
the largest portion of time, was a Democrat.
Yeah.
He was not a Republican. He ran against Lincoln.
Yeah, but this is where I find it even more funny, because you just said a great word, just great word. I'll bring it up in it is when you get like Southern who were against slavery as it was. They needed to decommission it. They need to bring it back and give state rules, because some states were really against it, but as a union, the full union, it was different. But what did you just say? And this is where I love some dumbasses. I'm going to call them dumbasses because you are dumbasses when they betray the Democrats as the people who free slavery.
The Democrats held the slaves. The Republican Party was created essentially
The
by
grand
Lincoln.
old party.
Grand
And
Old Party was created on a platform that included abolition of
yeah,
slavery.
and I don't say like, but parties change completely. You have the Whigs, the Tories, whatever. You're going to go
Mhm.
in the UK. You have the like we used to be the Liberal Party for years until 1918, and then it turned into the like now the more Conservative Party and the Labour Party as the two. But they change. But don't forget, and I always say this, and it's coming up to the election like that, what the Republicans did. You might get pissed off what the Republican Party are, and I understand that completely. But don't forget your history of what these two parties did. They are not the same parties as they are now. They are political parties of modern time, not the political parties of history. So
Yeah.
forget what that is, because every party across the world are not what they were back in the late or whatever part of the 19th century, because the Republican Party were pro. This is what they forget. Everybody goes like Lincoln. It's got to be one of your like when you go to
He's the
school.
founder of the party. He's
Your
the founder of the
no,
Republic.
but he has like if you went to buy. I'm guessing. Oh, Jay, I'm going to go for you first. Jay, who are your top? I'm going to go for five. United States presidents.
Oh God.
I know. I'm bigging you out. Okay, go for free. Go for free at least.
I don't know. I don't really have favorites to
No,
be
but
honest.
I'm just saying, like, if you had to go for historical value, not your
Um,
favorite historical value.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you'd say, Washington, Lincoln. Roosevelt.
Yeah, there you go. And I'm guessing
Top three.
Sandy, they're going to be in your free. Going to be
Teddy
somewhere there, aren't they?
Teddy Roosevelt, Lincoln,
Yeah.
Jefferson, Washington. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
But look at them in historical values. Like you go around the world, they are so different. Like Washington, absolutely a bit of an ass, to completely be honest, like a selfish bit of a git. What he did for the independence, I understand that. Like he's been pedestaled up there, but what he did for let's say a minority or a majority at the time for greed, completely different. Lincoln went completely a different way from what the country wanted to the party for political side to do what, and literally what happened to him.
He was
Literally
assassinated.
he was literally ripped apart because he wouldn't understand his own beliefs like that. And then you got like Roosevelt, is like Roosevelt. Okay, he's probably the neutral one. You kind of going like that. He wouldn't like say the truth about situation, but literally you got that. And this is the thing is like you've got to pull the truth apart from historical parts, and that's what I was just completely sidetracked there, completely about like the bringing down of like historical monuments, if they're good or bad. Learn about the history before you do it. There was one guy in Bristol who was a slave owner. He used to use one of the triangle ports in things. Then he changed, and he was one of the major influences to get slaves abolished in Europe and in North Africa. And the idiot crowd, because they didn't know, because they just heard the word, they pulled down his pulled down his statue. But he inherited it from his family, realized it was wrong, and then did all that he could do to stop it. And he went bankrupt by funding the I can't remember what like anybody naval. It's not the East India. It's not like the Royal Navy, but it's kind of like an outside to them to kind of fund to stop the import export of Africans into the triangle. I can't remember what they call it, the Atlantic Triangle, wouldn't they? That's it. So he was one of the ones who were like, if we can stop the tribes, then we can stop the export. That's it, like in like that. So that was one of his big things. He went bankrupt. He literally was one of the most richest family, richest. Does it pull down statue because they one time they had slavery. Not what he did later in life, and that's the thing. Like you got that whole presence of like Rommel, who this the thing is like if Rommel was just not as Rommel wasn't an educated story, everybody would just think Nazi, and he lost. There we go, done. But what he did in the grand scheme of things, in like the mindset of being a good soldier, and that's it. Yeah, he was on the losing side, but he was a good soldier. Stonewall Jackson's probably elevated because of his death, but Lee, literally General Lee Rommel, you've got to look at them in the good soldier thing. They were doing the best they could do for the country they believed in. Now, Lee probably didn't believe so much in slavery and abolition as other people, but what they believed in the state, that I suppose, like the state, the country, Lord, both of them is very paramount. They are literally, yeah, they've got different tactics and different things, divisions, but literally look at them as a two people. They are honorable. That's the thing I love to believe. Rommel and Lee are honorable. Like literally after their death, you've got like Lee was treated like yeah, and then you've got Rommel who was literally propaganded into it. But if you had that same, you had I suppose civil war in America, if that like what actually the assassination attempt would happen, you would probably got that divide. But Rommel would have been a Lee. He would have been revered now as then in today's society as you got that people who don't know history and people who do know history. People need to learn and people don't need to learn because there are different insights of Rommel and they are so much different in Lee.
And you need the perspective of history too. We need time. Like you need time to kind of really analyze and, should there be 1 million memorials all over the South? Should there have been a television show with the Confederate flag on top of an orange car, playing the, the Dukes of Hazzard? I don't know. I don't know that they should be as a grand, they should not be aggrandized. But to your point of what Lee did after. So what Grant and Lee to some extent together did was unfortunately undermined later when Grant became president, and his presidency was surrounded by controversy not of his own doing. Grant was an amazing giving person. And Grant and Lee together worked on Reconstruction. It was not perfect. It had a lot of flaws. But in Lincoln's second inaugural address, I believe, he talks about, you know, bringing the nation back together. And there's that quote, with malice toward none, with charity for all. Basically saying, let's put down our weapons and move forward.
Mm.
Let's work together. Let's not do what unfortunately we're doing right now, 165 years later, 63 years later, which we shouldn't be doing. We shouldn't be rewriting history.
But I think like with the so Second World War is very different. Like you got distant cousins, like the Civil War, you have
they're
brothers.
literal brothers, father and son,
Yeah.
fighting against. And again, there's no class. Remember, they're not fighting. They're not really fighting a government. Okay, they're fighting a union versus individual states. And by the way, let's pretend those Confederate states did break up. Guess what would happen? Then each of those states would have gone their own way too. They wouldn't have
Oh, yeah.
stood together. There would have been then 20 different states. Who can say? But at the surrender at Appomattox Courthouse, Lee arrives on his horse, and he surrenders his weapons to Grant in an honorable fashion. He hands over his sword, and Grant says, "You keep that." And Grant also says to your soldiers, "Keep their arms." To your citizens, keep your food, keep your farms, keep everything. We're all still Americans. We're not coming in to take over the South. We're coming in to help you rebuild. Let us know how we can help. That's how that happened. Now, what happened from then? A lot of opportunists jumped in right away. Really nasty politicians, and unfortunately, the 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 whole way that voting happened, and I could do a whole series on the 3/5 compromise, and yes, how horrible it is to count slaves and human beings as 3/5 of a person. But guess what? The more people you count, the greater the voting weight of those states that you just defeated. So do you want to really give them more representatives in a government? Those landowners in the South, those states that you just defeated? It became really about who had more money, who had more influence. And it, in the end, wasn't about helping people. And especially, it wasn't about helping African Americans who now had their freedom, but had not enough in a way of finding their way to true citizenship and true prosperity at that point in time. But we could talk forever about that.
I like it. I like how we've just gone from Second World War,
I know.
North Africa, to literally American Civil War. Like, yeah, but they're like, I'm guessing what we're saying there are comparisons. They are literally the people of history you need to really learn about. And I know, literally, Sandy, you've given a very insight. If we get Gettysburg glory or gods in general, what Jay might just need to sit back, put a feet up.
I'll bring some snacks, couple drinks, and just chill out.
I say you all just need to come over. Come over to Gettysburg. We're gonna go to Gettysburg. It's an hour and 50
I would
minutes
love
from the
to.
house. We're gonna sit on a hill and we're just gonna chat.
No, Jay's got to read a book. I mean, that is his thing. We have to do the book. But anyway, so altogether, I think we would recommend the movie. Yes, it is a collective.
Yeah, I'd recommend.
I would recommend it.
Now, this is a very hard one to score for me. But I'm going to go for Jay out of 10.
So I gave it a solid 6.
Yeah.
I really liked it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty impressive the way they made it, given the time and all that. Yeah, and it generally made me a little bit more interested in finding out a little bit more about this specific person and kind of time in history. And that much more excited about watching more black and whites, especially some of the black and white war movies as they come up on the wheel.
Sandy.
So I think a 5 is a super solid movie, does everything it says, and I give this a 5. I do recommend it. It's not enough of a film for me. So you know those
88
those
minutes.
yeah, you know those, but you also know those interspersing of the battle scenes. They're kind of long. Like they
Yeah.
go on for 2 or 3 minutes, and I think is that filler? Although that's interesting.
That's 20th
Um,
Century Fox. That
One
is
of the other
literally, yeah.
criticisms of the book is that it's actually been criticized as a fictionalized
Mm.
narrative of his history, even though the film follows the book. Both have been criticized that, well, there's a lot in those conversations between him and Strolin and him and the other general that we can't possibly know about, right? I don't know. I think it does a good enough job. I would have liked
Yeah.
to seen more biography.
How
I
much
think,
would you know about what the insight of most
yeah,
biography movies would be? Like, hey,
exactly.
you're
How are you
never
going
gonna
to know
know.
what any of them are?
Yeah.
Um, I like the methodology here, similar to the gentleman who wrote The Great Escape. He was someone who was in the thick of it and then went and did meticulous research. And Desmond Young was a prisoner of war. He saluted Rommel, and he went and talked to his wife, his son, and a number of the folk. He did not talk to Strolin, but a number of the people who knew Rommel. So as for historic accuracy, although it's kind of called fictionalized, I give this a solid B for historical accuracy. So it's a 5B from me.
Now, one thing before I give my score, I love and I think it's underrated because of the controversy in America, is James Mason acting is fucking awesome. Literally, he is great in this.
It
Yeah.
is.
I think
Yeah, he's good.
he is literally from what you take apart the rest of the movie,
Mhm.
he delivers his part absolutely great. That's why I love it because yeah, as I agree on both your score lines, but like him has like a down and out actor, like things like, oh, he just went, I nailed this. Like you cannot, and I think
Mhm.
Jay, you said earlier, the acting in it is really, really good. Now,
Mhm.
this could be a revamped like a movie. Now it is a very it is I say it's a very it is a different movie. Now, like I probably like has a thing on this because I said like earlier, this goes into a trio of for me of like being with my granddad sitting there as like a 5-year-old or whatever. You want to watch a movie? Blah, blah. And he puts on a black and white movie of like desert rats, desert foxes, desert patrol, or something like that. You know, like the Cruel Sea. You know, they old British black and white 50s, 60s kind of movies that you go. Oh, but the thing is, to me, this draws me back to my being with my granddad. What I love, like it reminds me, like it just every time I watch this, like it's really weird. I picture myself in their living room, and he's there in
Mhm.
his little, he's like sitting there, like watching it. Let's watch this. Really fun, really jolly guy. But like that's what I remember, like in the mindset of watching this movie, even though like my mindset have changed on what this movie is. I remember my granddad, and I love that. I love that this kind of movie reminds me of my granddad because oh
Mhm.
shit, I'm fucking gonna cry. But like, sorry, tears up, tears up, tears up. Like that is great. I love that kind of insert. Like, not the film, not the things. It's that experience, and like you get that with like if you have ex girlfriends, ex boyfriends, whatever, ex family members that you can just bring that you know, like you ever get like that smell of food that reminds you of your mum, your
Yep.
dad cooking that
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
These kind of movies, like there's a certain few. Like we got the a Christmas Story. It's an American movie. It's
Mhm.
an American movie. It's on there. Shit, I will cry when if that gets picked. They probably get picked now on the wheel. Wheel of Fortune. Literally, that is me and my granddad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every Christmas before he died, he had a Betamax, literally like that. So like that's it. But this movie just brings me. It hits me every time. Now I know it's not the greatest movie, but it brings me back. Now, if I agree, it is like a six and a half. It's not great. James Mason in it is brilliant. Absolutely. He's acting in it. He plays that German officer. What you expect. He's like up there. Boom, boom, boom. And he would have got like more accolades if the American market didn't protest it and didn't like it. But literally up there, it's literally for me, yeah, it's still it's a well worthy movie to watch. Is it a great one? It's not a blockbuster. It's not there. Is it a good 50s movie? Yeah. Look at it. It's 1951s. This is hitting home. So, like for me, yeah, it's 6.5 easily. Now, I would recommend watching Desert Rats because not the greatest movie, but it gives it the other switch aside. So, yeah, that's for me. It's probably got more nostalgia to it. Like literally, I welled up there, like just thinking about my granddad, and like, but it's a war movie, so that's it. But yeah, yeah. Before I get to
Film should do that, though. They should do that.
That's the point of all of this. It's why we enjoy talking about it. It's not just because it's something to talk about. There's a passion for movies. There's nostalgia when it comes to movies. Brings you back to certain times, people, places. That's the beauty of all of this.
And the beauty is, next is the wheel. And there is no more shorts that Sandy can throw in like a span of the work.
Let me tell you, so that's one of those things that makes me feel good. Because guess what? I watched that with my grandparents. Those sort of things and goofy Benny Hill and all that, those crazy Britishy things that we would watch. Yeah, so this will just be a short. We'll only spend 2 minutes talking about it. I promise we won't have a long conversation about dinner.
It's the matinee. The matinee to the matinee to the event horizon. So that is next time, people.
I'm so excited.
Yeah. It's good towards Halloween. I do. Yeah, I'm gonna go for that. That I do. And Sam Neill.
And Sam
So
Neill.
we got Sam Neill.
Jason Isaacs.
Yeah. So I got my last time. I got my Sir Alec Guinness, and now you've got your Sam Neill. So we're gonna go for Jay. You're gonna have to have a Denzel Washington.
I've seen a lot of Denzel. I haven't thought about it, but that would be nice. I am a big Denzel.
Yeah, there you go.
So you're right. I did put a few of them up there.
Yeah. So if I have to say what I kind of want a Western. I've been watching a lot of Westerns lately. So I'm going to go for I want a Western. Sandy, what do you want? As you've got your next 2 picks next time.
Yeah, I won't get mine, but Crouching Tiger, I told you before, I was starting to like have withdrawal.
And I didn't realize that is a novel. It's a 3-part novel.
It is a novel written in 1942.
Wow.
Yeah, I saw that today. I was like, wow. So that's good. Jay, are you still aiming for a comedy, something a little bit lighthearted? Or
no,
as against spooky season.
Yeah, I'll consider Star Wars lighthearted enough. So we'll move on to picking something. Let's go with a thriller. Let's go with a nice thriller. Prisoners. If that comes up, I'd be pretty happy.
There you go. Well, on that note, as we always do, it is time. Dun 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 dun. Oh, so is everybody ready? Chat, are you ready for the next after the matinee of dinner? Was dinner for one, and then we've got Event Horizon. What is good? Is good timing for Halloween. But next, let's go for it. I love it.
Here we go.
I love it because there's so many. Just don't know. We always say this.
So many.
Hold it. So I'm going to guess what we got announced is it's going to be Gods of General, Death of Stalin, or Shutter Island.
Ooh.
And then Sandy, what did you say? Because you called it last time. You went, "Oh, it's going to be Event Horizon," and then you called it. So
I did,
Sandy,
because we were talking about like what could be a spooky film, like a Halloween type film. So next time it'll be past Halloween, so we'll be going toward Thanksgiving. So did we have Planes, Trains, and Automobiles on this list? I don't think we
do indeed. Yes.
Alrighty. So guess what? There's a Thanksgiving film there. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Jay, just name a movie. Let's go for it.
Prisoners. I'm
No,
going with Prisoners.
Prison-
Nice
you going Prisoners?
thriller in
That-
the Halloween.
what do you
season.
Oh,
think?
what's up? Okay, I'm gonna go for. We're gonna go for another T. Oh, no, sorry, I'm gonna go for. We're gonna get National Treasure.
Ooh,
I'm just gonna bring out.
I
I'm
was
just gonna. I'm just
talking
gonna
about that
swing
today.
out. There you
while
go.
I was
I was
down
gonna
in DC,
so-
I was talking about National Treasure and Night at the Museum. My dad and I were talking about
There you
it.
go. Oh, there you
Yep.
go. So, okay, I'm National Treasure. Jay is Prisoners with what's his? Oh, I forgot my guy. I'm not Wolverine. Wolverine. My God, what is his name?
Jackman and
Uh-oh,
Gyllenhaal.
Abe's
Yeah,
not
that's
ready.
it. Yeah, and
Abe's not
then
ready.
yeah, and then he's not ready. We have to wait for Abe. And
Get
then
ready, Abe.
and then train, planes, and all. It's like, oh
Trains
my
and
God.
automobiles.
Oh, who's gonna be right? It's gonna be something very random. It's gonna be so random. Right, ready? 5, 4, 3, 2. I love this moment. 1, go. Silence. Oh, okay.
Machine.
Ooh, the old one? Is this
The
another black and
original.
white?
This is yes,
Yeah,
the
don't think I've
original.
seen
No,
that.
the it's not black and white. It's the original, but it's not black and white.
Oh, it's not black and white.
Not
Okay.
black and white. There you go. The Time Machine. Okay.
Ooh,
I
who's
like
in
this. I
that?
like this.
I've
Yeah,
already read the book, but I'll read it again.
There you go. So this
Jules
is
Verne.
definitely Jules Verne. So definitely this is. I think this is mine again. Sorry, Jay. I'll let you. So yeah.
This is 1949? It's not.
Yeah. It's
It is
yeah.
black and
So
white. It is black. It is 100%
no.
black
I'm
and
sure it's not black and white. I think it's the first one of the first Technicolors. I'm sure it's the Technicolor.
Nope.
Oh my God.
Not
Is it
according
black
to
and white? Is it?
IMDb.
Oh yeah. So yeah. No, black and white. Yay. Yeah.
But there's a different. Okay, there's a couple of different versions. So this is
Yeah, there's the
1949,
2002 Guy Pearce version. I don't know if it's
and
that.
there's a
Oh no, the Guy
1960.
Pearson. No. No, we're going for the original. The
Oh, I lie. Did I say Jules Verne? This is H.G. Wells. Please forgive me.
No, sorry, the 1960s version. The
Okay, Sister Marie
1960s.
Charles,
Yeah, with
please
the
forgive
Rob-
me.
1960s time machine. 1960s.
So
Not
this is
the Guy Spears. Yeah.
so this
1960s.
is Rod Taylor, Alan Young. I
Yeah.
don't know any. Sebastian Cabot. I do know him.
Yeah, there's been loads of them. There has been a very variation. This is the one that is the, I suppose, the Guy Pearce kind of remit of it. But oh my God, you gonna read the book?
I've read
Again?
it. I'll reread it
Yeah.
again.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a great book. Everybody, a great book. There we go. We got a bit of sci-fi, classic sci-fi. There we go, another sci-fi one. So there we go. So I like this one. So there we go. We got whatever dinner for one is. I mean, Jay, you're gonna be like
Appetizer.
yeah, whatever that is. Then space horror, and then time travel. Yeah, in a very classical way. There we go.
All right,
So,
I'm
yeah,
glad we
cool.
talked about this because
Sounds
I would have
good.
gone straight to the 19.
No,
40s,
1960s.
whatever version.
1960s.
Okay,
No,
1960s.
the early one, yeah. It's not a great one. No, 90s. That's why I put days. That's what years, sorry.
Yeah.
On our time list. I
Oh,
put
yeah,
years. I put the years list because I was like, which version do we mean? What? That's it. Yeah, so there we go. Another a classic. Like everybody's heard of it.
Classic.
It is a classic. So like, Jay?
Nope, never seen it.
Oh, not even the Guy Pearce ones.
No. Honestly,
we go.
Never heard of the title.
Ah, there we go. It's a very, I'm guessing it's right. It's a very classic book, isn't it? When was the book?
It is. It's on all the it's one of the
Yeah.
standards for like
Yeah.
literature courses and
Mhm.
if
It is a
getting-
very and I guess it's one of those ones that inspired other time movies. Let's say that, but this is done in a very weird. When time traveling movies, you go, oh, they shouldn't have done that. Oh, here we go, the Avengers. Yeah, they shouldn't have done that. This works. This works in a very, very well well away. It's like nothing. It doesn't go well. Let's say that. But yeah, so there we go. We've got a what's it? War, horror, sci-fi. You can't get anything better. There we go. But yeah, it's been absolute. This has been a good one. This has been a good one because it's been so different to whatever we've gone. And it's number 10. And that's what we like about the Wheel of Time. You do not know what you're going to get. And
The Wheel of Time.
Wheel
You
of
said the
Time.
Wheel of
Yeah.
Time.
I just
Yeah, Wheel of Time. Yeah.
We're gonna say that now. Now that's
Yeah,
gonna be in
yeah,
our
the Wheel
heads.
of Time,
Wheel
yeah,
of Time.
But we forget what's on there. And then we go, ooh, there we go. So yeah, it's good. It's a good one. But next we've got a bit of horror. Is it thriller horror thriller?
It's
Oh.
sci-fi, horror,
Yes,
thriller, psychological.
Yeah,
That's a
honestly,
psychological.
kind of
Yeah.
all of that.
Yeah, it is. So next, if you want to watch Dinner for One, find it. But otherwise, it's Event Horizon. It's going to be the main meal.
The main
Let's
course.
say that the main course. It's like we have an appetizer for Dinner for One. Not the BBC Channel 4 thing of the same name. But yes, I'm guessing most sci-fi geeks have seen Event Horizon, so I'm looking forward to it. And it's just leading up to Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you're a bit scared, I don't know what you're gonna do. You might get a bit
You're
scared.
gonna have to make it through it.
Yeah,
Don't
you're gonna have
know
to
if you're
grind your teeth. My girlfriend has already said she's not watching it. So there you
Oh,
go.
come
I know.
on.
I know she doesn't like most non-scary things. So there we go. But it's great. Yeah, I do. We always say it. I like how the wheel.
Oh yeah.
We forget what's on there. It's good. It would have been funny if we got Desert Rats. I would have laughed.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah,
Is that on there? I didn't realize.
yeah, it's on there. Yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
Then we will see it.
There we go. And there you go. I would always recommend if you haven't seen it, just watch it now. It's a good little the other side, the allied side to it. That's good. But yeah, apart from that, 88 minutes of joyness. No, that's not a word, but you know what I mean. Of joy
Just
of a little
joy.
bit of joy of a
Big
black and
old
white
joy.
movie. People, if you do remember it, I hope you really enjoyed it. Or if you've seen it, forgot about it, and then watched it again, there you go. Otherwise than that, if you haven't seen it, there you go. A little bit of a movie that you probably wouldn't have watched without our little Wheel of Fortune. There we go.
I don't
But
think so.
Sandy, how many you got left now? Sandy, you know one about how many buildings?
I think I'm down to about 20.
20. There you go.
And they're really hard. These are the ones that are like in the middle of an office building. You know, I'm sorry, and I don't want to name the countries because they're really tiny countries, and I don't want to disrespect them. But they don't. Most of them are not in grand mansions. But today, like I mentioned earlier, I spent a lot of time at the brand new World War I Memorial, which is absolutely fantastic. The sculpture has been revealed. And it is very moving. So I put my little short up today, but I will probably do a full video on that memorial, and then working on a couple of other adventures before I head to the UK for some adventures there as well. Jay, what do you got going on?
Not much. More the same as usual. Videos coming out on different things. At some point, I'll be streaming again, and yeah, find me in the usual places. Here, popping up on GTA Fridays whenever I can, and the Wednesday podcast as well.
Yeah, same for me. I mean, God, I've been so busy. Real life, busy. So I've actually, this is the first stream I've done since the last Star Wars film club. So I've been disappointed for everyone, but oh my God, I've been so tired and busy. Please let me down. And the worst thing is, my kid just got really ill. So that's good. He's got
I'm
one
so
of
sorry.
Yeah, no, it's one of those ones you're like, oh. when you have to run to make him get to the toilet on time as a 3-year-old, and you're like, and you're nappy training at the same time. I hate to say, people, chat, you might know, is literally horrid. Let's say the other day, first time I've ever been peed on.
Oh.
Bound
Well,
to
wait a
happen
minute.
eventually.
It should have happened a lot sooner, so you got off.
I know. I was like, yeah, good, yeah, like that. And I was like, and then calling for my girlfriend and go, I need help. Like, she's like, what's going on? What's going on? I'm like, yeah, I just can't move at the moment. Really don't want to put this anywhere else into the bathroom. Yeah. So, but like, yeah, I need to do more. I know I do apologize, but literally sometimes that and that just doesn't mix. So that's it. But this is always a certain, we'll be here. We'll be doing the next one. We're episode 10, guys.
Yeah,
So,
we're ripping through these things.
We've only got another 280 to go.
Yeah, we'll be
It's
done in
fine. There we go. So I hope everybody has enjoyed. Everybody popped in, popped out, has enjoyed a little bit of a movie they probably forgot about, but need to revisit. And you will the time. Give us the next one. So next time, Dinner for One, matinee, followed by Event Horizon for the Halloween thing, and then the Time Machine. So there we go. We have to talk about the classics that's in, but I hope everybody enjoyed this show. Everybody can stay for the next 200 ish, but until then, from us three. Until we get to Gettysburg and me and Jay can just sit back, put our legs up, and let Tandy talk for 4 hours. We might start that early or later, and I can just go to sleep and then wake me up. But then saying that, I might have a lot to say about. But until then, have a great one, everyone, and bye for now.
Bye.